4-7. Before we begin, I'll just let everybody introduce themselves to make sure that they are present. So let's start off with Mrs. Adams.
Present.
Mr. McQuaid.
Present.
Welcome back. Mr. Jeffries.
Yeah, present.
And Mrs. Luck.
Present.
And Tom Alonso, Chair. I am present. We have with us also the Town Manager, Heather Lemieux.
Present.
And as we get on to other things, I'll introduce other people at that point. So I will, as everybody knows who's been on Zoom, if you want to say something during public comment, there is a raise your hand function through Zoom. Please familiarize yourself with that. If you raise your hand during public comments, I will call on you. The board I will leave unmuted unless somebody has audio problems that cause feedback, then I will mute you. So I will start and see if there's any public comment from the board. And I see Mrs. Adams, you have your hand up.
Sure. Two things. First, like I always say, just thinking of all the parents, the students out there, hopefully people have found some sort of rhythm. And people may have followed today. There was this nice sign for seniors 2020, and it was swapped out to say juniors 2020, which in my day would have been done by the sophomores. But I just wanted to say, just watching that unfold and even there being a prank and everything, it just really highlights how much is missing right now. And so I hope everybody's still doing okay. And I hope things start to feel more comfortable and more normal for people. I know our Google Classrooms are just as difficult, but they're easier to do, if that makes sense. And then my other public comment would be, I don't know if there's a way, but I'm kind of feeling like in the mood to bring the Pledge of Allegiance to the Zoom meetings. I don't know if somebody would be able to have a flag. The morning session for my daughter's school does a patriotic song in the Pledge of Allegiance. And it's just recorded, but hearing it in the morning, it just kind of puts me in the spirit. We have Memorial Day and Independence Day and all these things coming up. So I didn't know if the board would be open to starting our meetings with the pledge again.
We can take it up as an item. We'll put it on. I mean, if anybody wants to comment now, they're certainly welcome to. Otherwise, we can put it on to discuss as a vote next week. Mr. McQuaid.
I just want to say thank you for everyone's patience with me being absent the past couple weeks. Everyone's healthy now and mostly back to normal. Looking forward to getting swinging things.
Excellent. Well, it's good to have you back, and I'm glad to hear the good news that everybody's well. I have one public comment. I address this awkwardly to the person who sent the anonymous letter via Manchester, New Hampshire postmark with no return address and no signature, who makes the accusation that the board and the town in general, that the Board of Selectmen are not paying close enough attention to fiscal matters regarding personnel and salaries and hours of work, and accuses us at various points, as well as the town manager, of nepotism, of favoritism in hiring, of not knowing town salaries, of asking who cares. That obviously we don't care, because, as they say, that the selectmen need to monitor these issues and keep them from getting out of line, which doesn't seem to be happening now. To that person, I would say, first of all, that I believe that the town is in very good hands with the Board of Selectmen and the town manager and the finance director and their appropriate staffs. I think they've done an incredible job over the years, not only the current staff, but previous staffs, of making sure that we are being fiscally responsible and that we know all these things that you're accusing us of not knowing. This is all public record, first of all. So you want to know anybody's salary, it's in the town report. If you want to know what's being spent and you want to accuse the selectmen of overspending, I would say that we don't spend. The town meeting spends, and that's open to the public and every voter out there. So if you're a voter, I would encourage you to go to town meeting. I would also say that all the votes and all the difficult discussions that we have as a board are either live when we're on stage or now on Zoom meetings with our faces and our names plastered all over everything, making difficult decisions and having difficult discussions and doing it all in public. And having anonymous letters accusing us of all things is A, not true, B, not constructive, and C, unhelpful. So if you want to be part of the process, I would recommend that you put your names on things, that you say what you mean with actually concrete examples and not wild accusations, because no one, after doing all the work that everybody is doing, whether it's paid or an elected official or appointed official, nobody needs to come out to these accusations. And nobody wants to hear their fellow citizens, supposedly fellow citizens, I have no idea if this is a citizen, say such things as this and not even ascribe their own name to it or put their face or address on it. So that's what I have to say about that. So anybody who wants to do this in the future, I would encourage you to put your name on it or come before town public comment or in front of town meeting and take those stands so people can see who you are and what you're doing and everybody can address it accordingly. I would ask if there's any public comment from the public, and I see that Mr. Passios, you have your hand up, so all yours.
Dave Passios, 56 Whiting Street. A little bit later in your agenda, actually coming up fairly soon because I don't think you have much business ahead of that in your old business. You're going to be again reviewing the 2021 budget and the annual town meeting. I specifically like to speak about one article in the annual town meeting warrant. This past Thursday night, or last week's Thursday night, the Finance Committee had its public hearing for the budget and the town meeting articles. And we had some very lengthy discussion about the streetlight article. And I started off the discussion with a very strong concern that at that point, that article was going onto the warrant and into town meeting without a funding source. By the end of our discussions, we came up with a funding source that, although we didn't vote one way or the other on the article, I think there was a consensus that we were very comfortable with recommending that funding source if this article goes to town meeting floor, and that is excess free cash that has not been appropriated for 2020, thus not affecting capital plan as it present stands, thus not affecting the 21 budget at all. There's more than double enough money in unappropriated free cash presently sitting in 2020 to fund the purchase of the streetlights. And that's just a general comment, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Before you mute yourself, I have a question. You addressed yourself or identified yourself as a resident. Are you coming as a Finance Committee member on behalf of the Finance Committee or just as a citizen who happens to be on the Finance Committee?
I would say as a citizen who happens to be on the Finance Committee, because as I said, we did not vote on that particular item except to defer it to town meeting floor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other public comment from the public? Seeing no virtual hands raised. Are there any announcements? I have no announcements. Anybody have any announcements? No. We have no appointments. Is that correct, Madam Town Manager?
That is correct, but we do have a resignation from a member of the planning board. The newest member, Marissa Thompson, and the reason for her resignation, I'll just read. It was forwarded to me by the land use director. Dear Chairman Allison, I regret to inform you of my need to resign as a member of the Town of Lunenburg's Planning Board effective immediately. I will be relocating out of state for my job and will no longer be able to serve in this capacity. I would like to thank you and the other members of the board for making this such an enjoyable experience. I will greatly miss living in Lunenburg, but I'm confident that you and the remaining members of the board will be successful in guiding it through its future growth. Sincerely, Marissa Thompson. I'd just like to.
Amen.
So if we can send a letter of thanks. Of course, this puts us at what, 3 members now?
3 members, that's not good, yeah. But Damon, with him not running for selectman, I feel like.
I think that was an ixnay on the landing pay board. Well, this puts a very, I mean, with only, what did we have? Did we say 4 people who have submitted nomination papers, and of any and all elected positions? That's gonna, this is gonna be very, let's say, interesting. So if anybody's out there who wants to be part of the planning board, A, it's a lot of work. B, it's very rewarding. I would say I would encourage people to run. We certainly need people. Katie.
I'm sure. In case I forget to bring it up, but this seems like a good time. I just thought of it. Is there a way through the town where we can have an official place to make people aware? I know it's just so confusing without a caucus and where there's so many vacant positions. Like, I know with a write-in, everything's abstract in real life, but is there any way for us to encourage participation in things like planning where there's no candidates? You know, not so much getting involved and try to promote write-ins that would go against candidates that there's interest for already, but in some of these things like planning, there's 0 candidates. I don't know if we could put it on an agenda or something, but brainstorm a creative way to try to first look for people, but for a way for them to introduce themselves. Or I'm not quite sure what the solution is, but it seems that a planning board with 3 members, sometimes they have to have 4 votes.
Yep.
For certain projects, and so they're handicapped to be able to even do some of their actions with just 3.
Agreed. I don't know the answer to your question. I mean, I know that somebody online on one of the Facebook pages called Town Election 2020 asked about the same thing, about, hey, at least can we know who's interested in running so we could write them in. Right now, you know, there's no way, nobody's announced that they're even interested in running.
Yeah, and if we could do it through something like our homepage, like a website, so it's something that's outside of Facebook, gets to a lot of people, but only to the people who are there. So maybe we can put it on our agenda to how can we creatively encourage and promote information about the upcoming election.
Madam Town Manager, can we put on one of the things we can do immediately is put a link on the front page of our town website saying all of the positions that are open and the people who have submitted nomination papers, at least those 2, and then all the openings that are beyond that?
We can do that. It might bump off other things under news and announcements that are up there right now related to COVID-19 and the postponement of the election, that information. But we can put something up.
If there is a way to fit it, obviously we don't want to take anything virus related off the front page because that's where people are going to look first. So just food for thought. I mean, I don't know that there's an easy answer here, and it certainly doesn't make it easier having more openings with resignations because of whatever circumstances. I see that we have the finance director here, and we have current businesses, a vote to sign the bond for the middle school, high school, and pavement management. So not to make her wait indefinitely, I would entertain that we go to that first. So Madam Town Manager and Karen, Madam Finance Director, I'm going to unmute you and let you guys present this bond for the middle school, high school, and the pavement management plan.
So you have paperwork before you to sign for a bond that was issued, and the bond itself is comprised of 2 projects. It's the final authorization, the final bond for the pavement management plan, and the final bond for the middle school, high school project. The total issue is $1,695,000, and of that, $1,020,000 is for pavement management, and $675,000 is the final borrowing for the middle school, high school project. We did receive a premium at the time of issuance on each of these projects. The net premium for the pavement management plan was $24,662.60. And the net premium on the middle school, high school project was $16,164.34. So in summary, the pavement management, the total authorization was $4 million. The prior issues were $2,825,000. This issue is $1,020,000, and the total premiums that we received on the project are $155,000. For the middle school, high school project, the total authorization was $72,975,321. Prior bond issue, $33,625,000. We actually appropriated unexpended articles in the amount of $30,000. This issue is $675,000, and the total premiums that were applied to the project were $170,831.79. On the middle school, high school project, the total authorization, like I said, was $72,975,321. The total actual expenditures were $68,106,474. Total reimbursements received from MSBA were $33,924,327. Total premiums applied to the project were $170,832. Unexpended articles applied to the project were $30,000. And the total amount of the project that we did not spend were $4,868,846. The bid for the last bond for both of these projects was awarded to J. Baird, and the true interest cost on this bond issue is 1.99%.
Any questions from the board?
No, thank you.
When are these mature, by the way?
It's a 15-year bond, so I believe it goes out to 2035.
Okay, did everybody get a chance to see the document, by the way?
Yes.
And did anybody beside myself return it signed?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so there's two. So you need what, Madam Town Manager, you need at least one more?
More.
All right.
And we need Damon's, because he's the clerk. So.
Damon, I'm going to try to bring up on the screen this long vote that you need to make. So first of all, get some water. Because it's like 2.5 pages of reading. Meanwhile, let me try to access it here.
You just reading what we received today?
I'm reading what's the Board of Selectmen vote, because it has to be read by the clerk, which is Damon. And let's see, that's not what I wanted. I got a real estate on my screen here. Okay, so let's share this.
Do we have to vote on this first, since the first section refers to the vote?
No, he's got to read the vote. He's got to read the motion first. And this is what we're going to vote on once he reads this. All right, so sharing here. Where is that document? Got too many things open on my screen. There we go. All right, can you see that, Damon? Did we lose Damon?
No, he's muted.
Okay, hold on. Okay, can you read that?
Yeah, so just, am I reading everything or just the first part?
Well, let's get a ruling. When we get to the words, when we get to these terms and everything, he's going to read every line, I'm assuming, right?
Karen, can the motion be such that it's so voted as described in the document before the board? And
I think that would be fine.
All right, so just read the words anytime there's a voted, and then when you get to a chart, say from using the respective rates as shown in the document, Damon.
Okay. I, the clerk of the Board of Selectmen of the town of Lunenburg, Massachusetts, the town certify that at a meeting of the board held May 12th, 2020, of which meeting all members of the board were duly notified, and in which a quorum was present, the following votes were unanimously passed, all of which appear upon the official record of the board in my custody. Voted that the sale of $1,695,000 general obligation municipal purpose loan of 2020 bonds of the town dated May 21, 2020, the bonds to Robert W. Bard and Company, Inc., at a price of $1,775,850.76, and accrued interest, if any, is hereby approved and confirmed. The bonds shall be payable on January 15th of the years, and in the principal amounts and bear interest at the respective rates as followed, shown on here. Further voted that the bonds maturing on January 15th, 2029, January 15th, 2032, and January 15th, 2035, each a term bond, shall be subject to mandatory redemption or to mature as follows, as written here. Further voted that in connection with the markings and sale of the bonds, the preparation and distribution of a notice of sale and preliminary official statement dated April 28, 2020, and a final official statement dated May 6, 2020, the official statement, each in such form as may be approved by the town treasurer, be and hereby are ratified, confirmed, approved, and adopted. Further voted that the bonds shall be subject to redemption at the option of the town upon such terms and conditions are set forth in the official statement. Further voted that the town treasurer and the board of selectmen be and hereby are authorized to execute and deliver a continuing disclosure undertaking in compliance with section SEC rule 15C2-12 in such form as may be approved by bond counsel to the town, which undertaking shall be incorporated by reference in the bonds for the benefit of the holders of the bonds from time to time. Further voted that we authorize and direct the town treasurer to establish post-issuance federal tax compliance procedures and continuing disclosure procedures in such forms as the town treasurer and bond counsel deem sufficient, or if such procedures are currently in place, to review and update said procedures in order to monitor and maintain the tax-exempt status of the bonds and to comply with the relevant securities law. Voted that any certificates or documents related to the notes, collectively the documents, may be executed with several counterparts, each of which shall be regarded as an original and all of which shall constitute one of the same document, delivery of an executed counterpart of the signature page of a document by electronic mail and a PDF file or by other electronic transmission shall be effective as delivery of a manual executed counterpart signature page to such document. Electronic signatures on any of the documents shall be deemed original signatures for the purpose of the documents, and all matters relating hereto having the same legal effect as original signatures. Further voted that each member of the Board of Selectmen, the town clerk, and the town treasurer be and hereby are authorized to take any such actions and execute and deliver such certificates, receipts, other documents as may be determined by them or any of them to be necessary or convenient to carry into effect the provisions of foregoing votes. I further certify that the votes were taken at a meeting open to the public, that no vote was taken by secret ballot, that a notice stating the place, date, time, and agenda for the meeting, which agenda included the adoption of the above votes, was filed with the town clerk, and a copy thereof posted in a manner conspicuously visible to the public at all hours in or on the municipal building that the office of the town clerk is located, or if applicable, in accordance with an alternative method of notice prescribed or approved by Attorney General as set forth in 940 CMR 29.032B, at least 48 hours, not including Saturdays, Sundays, and legal holidays prior to the time of the meeting, and remain so close to the time of the meeting so that no deliberations or discussions in connection with the state of the bonds were taken in executive session, all in accordance with GL C30A, Section 18 through 25, as amended, and all as further amended, suspended, supplemented, or modified by the executive order of the governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, dated March 12th, 2020.
With drama far beyond your years. And that's the pleasure of being the clerk. You get to read things like this.
Exactly.
Do I have a second on that motion?
Second.
All right. So is there any questions before we move to the vote? Seeing none, it's a roll call vote. So Mrs. Adams.
Aye.
Mr. McQuaid.
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries.
Aye.
Mrs. Luck.
Aye.
And an aye from me. So it is duly passed. I want to thank the finance director and the town manager and your staff, the treasurer, for putting all this together.
So am I electronically signing this and getting it back to you, or how do you want? Do you need me to sign it in person?
No, you can sign this electronically. This form, as well as the other, the signature pages for execution that the selectmen received.
Okay.
And
Did you email this one to me, or is it in the drive?
It's in the drive, and that signature pages for execution document has 4 pages that you'll need to sign, because the last one is just by the clerk. So actually, that last page just for the clerk is the vote you just read, just the signature part. So just that document, those 4 pages.
Okay.
There's a signature PDF, Damon, that she's referring to in the Google Drive. Just download that and print it, sign it, scan it if you have a scanner, and send it back.
Is that under today's folder?
It's in today's, yes.
Yes.
It's in today's meeting under the MSHS and
We also received it by email.
yes, we got it by email.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I got it. Thanks.
Okay. Let's go back up to old business, fiscal year 2021 budget. Are there any updates, Madam Town Manager?
So there are 2 documents. Sorry, I don't see those there. So the update.
What you presented at Finance Committee?
Yes. So the updates to the budget, which are reflected in the budget presentation that's in the Google Drive, include the updated debt management debt schedule numbers that we just went over for the pavement management and the middle school, high school project, as well as the Saliba and ladder truck debt. So those are final figures that are included on both the revenue side, because they're debt exclusion figures that calculate into that figure, as well as the expenditure side under the maturing debt and interest issuance costs. The other updates are the PEG Access Enterprise figure, the 191,000, that is their budget, is that's an update, as well as on the expenditure side, there is 143,000. So the surplus right now in the budget is $1,055,949.20.
What page in that PDF are we looking at for that? You're talking about this is the budget presentation document, right?
Those were two documents that I sent out, the ones I send out each week with the adjustments.
Okay.
I sent them on Thursday to the board. It has the revenue expense sheet. Those are the ones I went over, but
So
I can.
it's not in the drive.
No.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about those changes? Anybody have any further questions about the budget before we move on to the actual town meeting warrant articles, the ones we did not provide recommendations for last week that we're about to take up? I'm going to step away and get my tablet here. Okay.
I don't know if everyone saw the presentation to the Finance Committee. I can certainly go through it again if that's the desire of the board.
I don't know. Mrs. Luck, you have your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to reiterate that I disagree with the budget.
Okay.
And will not be supporting it.
Okay, we're going to go on to the track draft warrant articles. So the first one I have, I'm just going to go over the ones that we did not take a vote on last week. So the first one is letter D, which is prior year 2020 budget adjustments. So is there actually a number to that?
There are none at this time. So what Finance did was defer that.
Yeah, so I would, that's what I would say. We would, I'm assuming there may be a number, so we will make a recommendation at town meeting because we don't have the data. These all have to be votes. So does somebody want to make that motion, or does somebody have another motion they want to make?
So moved.
I have a second.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor, Mrs. Adams,
Aye.
Mr. McQuaid,
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries,
Aye.
Mrs. Luck,
Aye.
and an aye from me. So that's at town meeting. Okay. F is capital plan.
Yeah, I moved to defer this to town meeting as well.
Do we have a plan that's being proposed?
There is a plan proposed. It's in the budget presentation. It was, nothing's changed from that last recommendation from the capital planning committee, would be basically cut the original plan in half and down to 11 projects, which are proposed to be fully funded by free cash with no tax revenue source.
Okay. And this will be printed in the warrant, correct?
Yes.
So, Mr. Jeffries, if I may ask, why do you want to defer it if we have something before us?
I think that there's some questions over how much we should be spending here. So I would rather us make a recommendation after that discussion is had.
I would agree.
Is that a second?
Yes, it's a second.
Any discussion?
Just, Heather, are we still planning on meeting with Capital Planning Committee to change that at all, or is it we planning to go with this?
Well, the finance committee had questions, so that is why the capital planning committee was invited to their meeting this Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard from a couple members, the capital planning committee members so far, so I don't know if there will be a quorum or not
Okay.
for that.
Personally, I'm not for deferring it if we're going to give people a vote. Either you're for what's in the warrant or not, because what we're taking a vote on is what's in the warrant, what's being printed in the warrant. So that gives people guidance. If you feel that it's going to be changed or something, then that's what all town meeting is about anyway. But we're asked to make a recommendation on the article that you're going to, that's a definitive article. It's not like there's any guesswork that's going to change between now and then. From the capital plan, as we just heard. So I am personally against deferring it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we did a responsible thing and we cut the plan in half. So cutting it back any further could certainly happen on town meeting floor, but I don't feel good recommending less than that now.
All right. If no more discussion, we'll take a roll call vote. The vote is to defer our recommendation to town meeting. Mrs. Adams.
To defer it, I would say nay.
If you want to defer it, that means we're not going to make a printed recommendation and we're going to make a recommendation at town meeting instead.
I understand.
Okay. I didn't hear your vote. I'm sorry.
Oh, I said nay.
Mr. McQuaid,
Nay for myself.
Mr. Jeffries,
Aye.
Mrs. Luck,
Aye.
and a nay for me. So I would entertain another motion. We are not going to defer it. I would entertain a motion on the capital plan as is before us and as will be in the town warrant.
I'd make a motion to support the capital plan as presented in the warrant.
Do I have a second?
I would second it. And it's, things can be amended at town meetings, so I support what we have going forward.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion of recommending approval? Mrs. Adams,
Aye.
Mr. McQuaid,
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries,
I will abstain.
Mrs. Luck,
Nay.
and an aye for me. So 3-1-1, we are recommending approval on Article F. And after tonight, I'm assuming, Madam Town Manager, that these will be numbered and not lettered anymore.
Yes.
So that's 3-1-1 approval, recommend approval. Okay, G is the budget itself that the town manager has just given us the latest update on. We have the latest budget that's going to be going into into the warrant. That budget will be printed in the warrant, correct?
Yes.
So I would entertain a motion on the budget itself.
Move to approve G as presented.
Do I have a second?
Yes, second.
Second by Damon. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion to recommend approval of the budget as presented, Mrs. Adams,
Aye.
Mr. McQuaid,
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries,
Aye.
Mrs. Luck,
Nay.
and aye for me. So we recommend approval 4-1. J, stabilization fund. Do we have anything we're putting in? Do we have a number that we're putting into the stabilization fund?
210,000. So it, due to the deferment of the OPEB, it transfers that original deposit into OPEB, into stabilization on top of the 100,000 originally recommended.
Okay, so the vote is to see if the town will move to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of money of $210,000 to stabilization fund. I will entertain a motion on that article.
So moved.
What's your move?
The motion to approve Article J.
Recommend approval, okay. And
As
do I have a second?
Yes, second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor, well, actually, all those voting, I won't say in favor. Mrs. Adams,
Aye.
Mr. McQuaid,
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries,
Aye.
Mrs. Luck,
Aye.
and an aye for me. So unanimous, recommend approval of that. L, this is the Sewer Enterprise Fund. Do they have their final budget? Well, no, this is this year's budget. Do they have any adjustments to this year's budget?
There are no adjustments at this point in time.
Might there be?
There might be, and that's why finance deferred this one as well.
Okay, so
Or there,
since we don't have a number now and there might be a number, then we might as well, and again, we might as well defer this one because there's no recommendation to make.
I move to defer L.
Second.
Until D.
Okay, I think, was that seconded?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor of the deferral, please say, or please vote. Mrs. Adams,
Aye.
Mr. McQuaid,
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries,
Aye.
Mrs. Luck,
Aye.
and aye from me. So that's at town meeting. All right, we jump all the way to U. U is to see if this is the primary school one that has no money and has no action in it that we can't take on our own. But we wanted to wait till we had a full board here. So again, the intention of this initially when we put in was to come back to it this before the whole pandemic and COVID-19 happened, to try to assign it a cost so we could get design funds and get somebody to give us an idea about, you know, what could be done with it afterward and have some design money for it. As it stands and the way it's written, it's just securing estimates, which we don't need town meeting approval for. We can get estimates on our own. So really, as the comment, if you see in the Google Drive from our town council says, there's no action to be taken that needs town meeting vote. Mrs. Adams.
Hi, yes, I think I'd start off by saying that because the town is moving forward with the TC Passios Building Design Committee, which is ultimately, you know, something the town meeting asked for a study for what the price would be. But anyways, we're taking steps forward with what would be a $10 to $15 million building during a time when all buildings are closed. I don't understand why we would halt at least learning more information about this spot, because this building is a hazard. And we're trying to figure out how to apply money to its safety. There's, you know, flooding issues, you know, vandalism could become a problem. I think we should stay focused on learning about a positive outcome, because it doesn't, keeping it there and keeping the conversation going doesn't mean we're spending money on it. But if you contrast it with the fact we are, you know, still pursuing TCP, I don't understand why we wouldn't, you know, it's like an all or nothing. I don't understand how some things would make it onto an essential list and some wouldn't. It's just like everything else. It's inconsistent. I say since no harm in leaving it.
Mr. Jeffries.
I move to remove U from the warrant as presented.
Okay, I'll hold off on that if anybody else has any comments. Mrs. Luck.
I've received several comments from residents of Lunenburg who feel that this should be left on the warrant. They'll feel better about it being on the warrant. And I just wanted to convey that. As what Katie said, there really isn't any harm in leaving it on.
Mr. McQuaid.
I'm fine with leaving it on if someone can make me feel good about the last sentence that talks about or take any other action relative thereto.
Well, that's the end of every.
There.
That's pro forma.
but is this truly limited to estimates and it's not anything else?
Yes. I mean, again, when you make a motion, it doesn't mean, basically you're putting the town on notice that we're going to be talking about the old primary school with regards to asking for estimates for the demolition and future design. So it just tells people, that's the take any action there too. It tells people that it could be, modified within those confines. That's all. Madam Town Manager.
I was just going to add, the way it's worded too, it doesn't reference any funding source. So a motion wouldn't be able to reflect a funding source the way that is written.
Well, there's no money associated with it, nor do we have any money to associate with.
Right. I just wanted to make that clear that it wouldn't be requesting, whatever is on floor wouldn't be able to request a funding mechanism for it.
Mrs. Adams.
Just to the point, we don't really need a funding source, as the little item that Attorney Costa had added in. We could actually request these things within our own budget, be it DPW's budget. It doesn't need a funding source. And I think a lot of it, this was one of our goals as selectmen, to look at positive outcomes for that building, in this situation, a green space or, a town green, or simply just to get the dilapidated building removed. But I think what we tried to do, or trying to do, is to build consensus and an understanding of what people are looking for. I think I welcome the discussion and the moving forward with this building. I don't think removing it brings any value, and leaving it certainly doesn't have a cost.
Mr. Jeffries.
Yeah, thank you. So I've previously supported leaving this here. I think the reason why I've had a change is when we had the special town meeting, we did a survey, and that survey was broad. It had a lot of options on it, and it steered us, I believe, in this direction definitively. And the intention, as you noted last week, and as we discussed, was to confirm that that's the direction the town wants us to go in. And there was an expectation for us to have some cost estimate in here. So, I think that we can come to the town at the special town meeting in the fall with a similar article, that we can have the correct numbers by then to present to them, and we can move in a direction. My only hesitance right now is I don't know how many pages this warrant is going to be, and if this little section pushes us to have to spend a penny more than we need to for something we already have an answer to, then it's probably not worth it.
I'll donate money for the extra paper.
Mr. McQuaid.
Yeah, I would like to leave it on there. I'm not necessarily in favor of the demolition of it. I think it kind of rubs the preservation district the wrong way, and it's in some ways working contrary to their process. But I think we should hear what people want to do with it and have the discussion versus just a survey.
So my personal feeling is that two things. I think we should bring things to town meeting that require town meeting votes that we cannot do other ways. That generally means taking some action that requires their permission, or to appropriate money, which requires their permission. This article does neither of those. There's nothing in this article that we can't do on our own already. Adding to the fact that with the current situation where people may already feel uncomfortable about coming to town meeting because of the pandemic, making town meeting any longer than we need to, especially for items that don't require their input, does not make a lot of sense to me. And so this article, again, was put in this form as a placeholder. It was never returned to because of the current pandemic, and does nothing. And it does not solidify support because it would require some other town meeting, which could be voted a totally different way. And therefore, I am not for keeping it on here because, again, I don't think it does anything that we can't already do.
Okay.
Mrs. Adams.
Right, sure. A couple comments on that. One is it's a little frustrating to say, why do we have this article that doesn't accomplish anything that we could already be doing? Well, why haven't we already done something? This was a goal of ours to do something with this property. And if we find out through Heather and Attorney Costa that we could have been taking these steps, then since it's our goal to work on understanding a better outcome for this, then I am upset with us for having done nothing. I mean, I can't understand how you can say it's not worthy of being a warrant article because it's stuff we could be doing anyways. Well, why aren't we doing it? I mean, I've only been doing town government for about 3 years and I've seen so many wheels spin. It's unbelievable. But this is a vacant building that has dangers. And someday it could be blazing on fire and we're going to send our firefighters in it, et cetera, or kids get hurt in there. And sometimes, the first floor floods a little bit and this and that goes wrong. And I just can't understand why we don't want to focus on positive outcomes, whether it's safety or aesthetics. And even if, shame on us for making an article with no purpose, and shame on us for having abilities to work on this site and not having done so. And that being said, the whole concept, town meeting deals with with millions of dollars of budgets and everything. There's so much importance at town meeting. I don't think it's fair to say that we should shorten it or we shouldn't have, it's very complicated, the times that we're in, but I don't think it's fair to use that as a political tool to dismiss something, because one thing could be there, one thing couldn't be there, and it's all under this new strange times. But the last point I'll make on this topic is the town is moving forward on the TC Pathos project, which is a $10 to $15 million building renovation if it moves forward, which I find totally egregious under the circumstances of this time. Anything we do to improve the old primary site, primarily take down the building, is in the range of $300,000 to $500,000. The stuff that's moving forward with TCP will lead to a $10 to $20 million project, and yet they're meeting and they're moving it forward. So I can't understand the dichotomy of it being okay to work on a multi-million-dollar project when all other buildings are closed, but we can't work on cleaning up a site that's been an eyesore for 25 years or more.
Okay, so first a few things. You brought in like the whole chicken, the whole pot, and you threw everything in that pot, okay? There are details that I'm sorry that either they're confusing or you don't want to recognize, but that money for the TC Passios Design Fund was already funded. The previous town meeting already allocated the money. They are just going through with a town meeting vote that had specific money associated with it. There's nothing new going on there. Okay, that's number one. Number two is this, again, I'll say this article was put in as a placeholder to come back to try to allocate money. If we go back to the previous selectmen's meetings, that's why it was put in with this wording, because we didn't know if there was money available. Now we've cut the budget by $1 million we have in excess. So there's no money that we never got back to this. Okay, nothing is happening with it because only if people watching current events, there's only a million other things happening. So we didn't get back to it. Yes, I agree that we need to address it. I am for it. All of the selectmen voted for addressing it. It's just unfortunate that this article doesn't do that. And I don't think it's helpful to go ahead with a vote that doesn't accomplish anything. That's all. That's just the fact. The vote as written doesn't accomplish anything, except getting another straw poll vote, which as we got at the last town meeting when we asked people options. So we have our direction. We have the goal decided. This time, at this town meeting, we don't have the money for this. We could come back to this in the fall to try to see if things are different or things are better, and we can attribute money to it. Until we attribute money to it, it doesn't accomplish anything. Mrs. Luck.
If we're concerned about town meeting should be delayed.
That's out of the scope of what we're talking about with this particular article. So we can.
Yeah, but you use that as one of the excuses for not putting it on.
Shortening is not the same as eliminating it. There's a lot of these things that need to get done, and they're going to need to get done at some point.
At some point, but when it's safe.
And when is that? When will you be convinced that it's safe?
I'm
Right.
not really,
See,
I'm
that's
not
my
sure,
point.
but I don't think,
If the governor's order is lifted and we take appropriate action as designated by the Board of Health's and the Massachusetts Public Health, there are ways to attend town meeting and make it safe. If we follow those, then we can do it. If the governor's order has not been lifted, then we're going to be forced to delay it anyway.
you're the one who brought up that you want to make it shorter because it may not be safe. That's all I'm saying. If it's not safe, we shouldn't hold it. We should put it
It's
off.
twofold. I don't want to waste town meeting time. That's equally important. How many times do people say, why are we voting on this when it doesn't mean anything? Why do we waste an hour on something that's worth $10,000 and we pass a budget of $35 million in 15 minutes? So I don't want to waste time on something that has no value and does not provide any direction or action or funding. That's what town meeting is for. Mr. Jeffries.
I agree with you. I think that if we're talking about having a discussion, but with this article, if we do anything, we have to come back anyway and ask for some money, which is going to have a discussion.
Right.
It seems just like a waste of time. But as a formality here, I don't know if my motion to remove this was seconded.
I haven't asked for a second yet, so don't worry.
Okay.
I haven't forgotten that. Madam Town Manager.
I just wanted to add that we have done portions of this article as far as getting estimates for demolition costs, the hazardous materials survey that was done that identified the costs associated with that. So that has been action taken towards that goal. As far as the future design of the space, that was never discussed by the board as far as what that actually ultimately will look like. So that would drive what an estimate would look like as far as the scope. So I just wanted to add that work has been done towards that.
Mr. McQuaid.
Yeah, I hear all your arguments, and I guess somehow along the way, every time this seemed to have been on the agenda, I had to miss the meeting for work or another reason. So I haven't had a lot of input on it through the whole the time you guys have discussed it. What I would have actually liked to see some money associated with this for designer selection to plan the future use, because it's going to be tough to do the things that Mr. Jeffries is talking about for the fall, to get real prices about the new design for the space, be it a parking lot, the engineering to go along with that, park, if has some landscape design associated with it. I think to get those real numbers, there's still a small amount of money that needs to get approved to get a design done, to get some engineering done before you can get the real number so people can really decide on it. So I'm unfortunate there's no money attached to this, but I agree. If it's things we can do anyway, have been doing anyway, it's a long agenda. I don't know if it needs to be on town meeting.
And I think, I don't know that I speak for everybody, but I think everybody would agree that we want to put money to this. And I think it should be on the next special town meeting. And we should look at, in case there's any chance to get any money on that between now and then, we should look at what we're looking for funding to make this design work happen. All right, now I would ask, does anybody second Mr. Jeffries' motion?
I would second that.
All right. Everybody's vote, roll call vote. Mrs. Adams.
Nay.
Mr. McQuaid.
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries.
Aye.
Mrs. Luck.
Nay.
And an aye from me. So 3-2 to remove it. X is, what is X? I don't even have an X on here.
That is the animal, the kennel bylaw.
Oh, there it is. Okay, I'm sorry.
Chief Marino is here as well.
All right, so did we get, wasn't there a town council comments on the last one? Did we get that revised or?
Yes, the copy in your Google Drive reflects all the appropriate amendments.
Okay. Does anybody have a motion they would like to recommend approval or disapproval of Article X?
I recommend approval of Article X.
Second.
Second. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, roll call. Mrs. Adams.
Aye.
Mr. McQuaid. Mr. McQuaid is frozen. Let's see if he comes back to life. Mr. Jeffries.
Aye.
Mrs. Luck.
Aye.
And an aye for me. Mr. McQuaid.
Oh, aye, sorry, internet lag there.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, no, you were frozen for a second. All right, so that's unanimous.
Kids must be watching something in the other room.
I wish we could use that in our lives, like at town hall. You kind of blink out for a little while,
I think people have tried it in real life.
lagging.
Y, which is the, again, with animal control. So these are about fines.
I make a motion that Article Y be on the warrant.
No, this is a recommend approval or not.
Recommend approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Katie, you were raising your hand because. did you
Oh, I
want-
was giving a thumbs up for snack.
Okay. Oh, gotcha. Okay. Roll call. Mrs. Adams. This is recommending approval, by the way.
Aye.
Mr. McQuaid.
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries.
Aye.
Mrs. Luck.
Aye.
And an aye for me, unanimous. Z. All right, this is the Community Preservation Act. So we've heard, again, I don't know that we need to go over all the particulars because we spent lots of time on two different meetings. We deferred this, whether we keep this on the warrant, because we wanted to have a full board and Damon was out last week. And also during the week, there was a question. So Madam Town Manager, did we get that question answered about whether this is in the proper format? Do we need to include an article, or does this require the inclusion of an article that creates the Community Preservation Committee?
Speaking with town council, and he states it in his comment as well, it's the IGR says it should happen at the same time as the article is voted at town meeting. Doesn't mean it shall, but it should be done prior to the referendum vote, the committee.
Okay, well but that's not so that in and of itself does not negate this. So it's still a valid article to be put on if the board chooses to keep it on. Mrs. Luck.
I'd like to make a motion that this article be removed from the warrant. I feel that there are too many unanswered questions. I attended the Finance Committee meeting last Thursday. Michelle Walton had sent a bunch of questions to Rebecca Lantry. They hadn't been answered. No one on the Finance Committee said, well, I know about the Community Preservation Act. What are your questions? Maybe I can answer them. I feel like even the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen have a lot of questions about the CPA. The public is not well informed. It's certainly nobody's fault, but COVID-19 has made it so that there has been no ability to inform the public. Town meeting is not a place to educate the public. A proper discussion would take a really long time. We're just not ready. Our residents have not been educated. And also, it's a new tax on top of everything else. It's not the time.
Again, just for technical reasons, it's not a tax, but I understand that's your impression, but I get it. But technically, I just wanted the people to be clear. If we're going to educate people, it's not a tax.
Well, it's a check we're going to have to write down every year.
It's a surcharge, and that's what it's listed as, and that's what it's called. I don't think we need to editorialize what the charge is. Mrs. Adams.
You're on mute, Katie.
No, I'm trying to unmute her. I don't.
All right, thank you, Damon. Another thing that might be nice for live meetings, if you could have muted me. So one thing is that in town, this has failed twice, but in government, people are allowed to come back again and again and again. So I don't hold anything against it for that. But that being said, I think the tendency for it to fail is tenfold. Both people didn't want it in the past, and I don't think people are prepared for any type of extra spending right now. Even if I supported the CPA, I wouldn't want it to go through right now. I just don't think it's the time to add a cost, whether it's a tax or a surcharge or anything. I think people are going to be looking for savings, not for added costs. It requires a vote, and I think that vote would have to be next spring. Is that true? Is that what we talked about?
It would be in the
special election.
in the fall. It would be in the fall.
It could be done at the fall
Yep.
election.
Yep.
Okay. And so in that case, I don't see any reason if we'd have to wait to the fall to have the voting portion of it occur, why we wouldn't wait till the fall town meeting, especially if the sentiment is to remove things that would make the meeting unnecessarily longer. This one, I think, would get into a lot of discussion. It is and has been controversial, and I don't see any disadvantage to doing this one in the fall. I would support not having it for the spring just because I think it's more well suited for the fall when the voting portion has to take place then anyways.
Okay, but just so you know, again, not arguing with your reasoning, but if it waits till the vote has to happen, does it matter the vote, which order happens, town meeting or the vote?
Yes, the town meeting
Has to happen first.
has to happen first.
Right. So if we defer this to the special town meeting in the fall, then the vote gets delayed till the spring. That may not change your reasoning, but I just wanted you to know that. Mr. McQuaid.
Yeah, I just want to say that I think the CPA is a great program. I'm in full support of it. I don't think this is the right time to be asking people to dish out more money every quarter. I don't think it's going to be successful. I think it's a bad look for us. I hope it passes next year. I hope it comes back next year, but I don't think this is the right year to do it.
Okay, I don't see anything up there. I would say that my prior stance to this was that I'm not going to decide what people can afford or not afford. And therefore, I thought previously that I think it should go on. But I think in light of several factors, that being the fact that I think that even though it doesn't mean shall, we probably should, and I will take that under advisement, that it should have another article that goes with it that creates the Community Preservation Committee, number one. Number two, it certainly will get a lot of discussion, and that will prolong the meeting. And I don't think that with the lack of information and the inability to get information out there because they can't hold forums, and I don't think they're going to be able to attract forums either. I have changed my position on this, that I think and I am completely in support of this as somebody who was a proponent the last two times, the last one being, I think, 10 years ago. If I think this had a chance right now, I think it would get voted down because people are confused about what would be going on with it. And I think we could put it on in the fall or we could put it on in the spring. Either one, the vote would be in the spring in any case. So I am with you all. I think we should remove it. So I would entertain, did we have a motion?
We did.
Okay, and did we have a second on it?
We did.
All right, so Mrs. Adams, this is the vote to remove it from the warrant.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify the motion was to remove. I would go with an aye.
Mr. McQuaid,
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries,
Aye.
Mrs. Luck,
Aye.
and an aye from me. So this is removed. Madam Town Manager, can you please send an email to Mrs. Lantry and let her know our vote?
I will.
Okay, the last four, double A, which is the street lights. We have, let's come back to that as last because I think that has the most discussion. So let's go to C, which is the excavation and earth removal. And this is basically deleting the words Board of Selectmen and putting in Planning Board. So basically taking this responsibility for issuing earth removal permits from the Board of Selectmen to the Planning Board. So this is the last three are on recommendations, not removals, by the way. So does anybody have anything they want to say or a motion they want to make on CC? Mrs. Adams.
Yes, I mean, we went through this last town meeting. I think the planning board continued to work on it. And then we had, an earth removal permitting process, that drew in conservation and in the state and a lot of other people. I really hope it goes to planning board because it's so well suited for the information that's already being relayed, in particular things like the engineers. For applicants to have the engineers come to our meeting and then to planning and then to conservation. I think anytime we can streamline a process and prevent redundancy, it doesn't mean we can't participate as citizens. We could go to these meetings if something caught our attention, but I really hope that the earth removal permitting process goes in a direction where there can be more focus and, not necessarily better outcomes, but yeah, I definitely support this and hopefully it will, and here's my last thought, hopefully it'll go through, but the interesting caveat that we're left with, because I went to a lot of conservation meetings and a lot of planning board meetings on the earth removal topic that moved through back. And we are not currently holding people accountable for the bylaws we have. And that has been said again and again and again. And so if we retain the authority, I think we do need to have discussions and make it clear at town meeting that if we retain the authority, it's a really, really strict permitting process that I don't think anybody wants to see go into action. But we'd have to discuss what action we'd take to follow our own bylaws, which we're not currently following.
Okay, Mr. Jeffries.
Yeah, I think that I have a minority view here today based on our previous discussion about this article. However, I just, this is one of the few things that can change the landscape, literally, of our community. And I think we have to, I don't know, I wasn't part of the discussion on why this was given to the Board of Selectmen, how old that history goes back. But it just seems to me that a process that can have a significant effect on our town should go through just a couple extra checks. I think that the one that came before us this year, it was, in my opinion, quick. I know it was long, but it was a day. It was one meeting, and we approved it. And I don't see why, because we can look at different things. I don't know if it's appropriate for us to give up that responsibility and put all of it into the hands of just the planning side of it and conservation when applicable. So I'm not going to support this, but I do understand the perspectives of the rest of you guys, and I expect that this will be a 4-1 vote.
Please don't.
Anybody have any? Hold on a second. Anybody have any discussion or make a motion, because we still don't have a motion now. Right?
I make a motion that we support this article.
Recommend approval. Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. The only comment I will make before we do it, it'll be very brief, which is I totally understand your position, Mr. Jeffries, and I'm actually kind of on the fence. I could see it go either way. I do appreciate your viewpoint of another set of eyes, and the planning board, regardless of this particular permitting, has a role anyway, as we saw in this last plan. I don't know that we lose anything because there's the Conservation Commission and other bodies have to look at this anyway. So while I appreciate that, I'm going to, in kind of mildly go ahead with agreeing with the motion. So let's take a roll call vote. Mrs. Adams.
Aye.
Mr. McQuaid.
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries,
No.
Mrs. Luck,
Aye.
and an aye from me. So recommend approval 4-1. Mr. Jeffries' prediction is right. Okay, hold on a second. I missed the vote on. Oh, we're coming back to that. That's why. All right. I said I missed a vote on AA. All right, CC, which is the changes that the planning board wants to make to the earth removal permit as they are shown in the article here. So basically, this is with the changes made. So does anybody have any motion they'd like to make on recommending approval for CC?
I recommend approval, CC.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second? No second? Madam Town Manager, I don't think you can second it, but go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify, you'll notice in the tracked version that it's CC is correct, but so the last one, the order of the two articles was flipped. So originally CC was BB and BB is now, and CC is now BB. So the change to the earth removal one where it replaces the Board of Selectmen with planning.
That's CC?
Yes.
All right.
What one did we just do? What did we?
Well, yeah, so we did one, we discussed the one where we changed the authority, moved the authority from the Board of Selectmen to the Planning Board. It was my error because I didn't see the strikeout. That's actually CC. So with everybody's permission, I'll just move that vote that we just took to CC. And now the one that's before us is BB, which is where the Planning Board not only takes over control of it, but adds a whole bunch of other things to it and makes modifications in the bylaw itself.
Correct.
Is that okay with everybody to make
Sure,
that
I make a
change?
motion for our recommendation of that one. The planning board's modifications.
Okay. Recommend approval, you're saying?
Yep.
Okay. Do I have a second? Does no one want to? Does anybody have any feeling about this?
Yeah, I don't support the article.
I kind of guessed. I want to make sure everybody's paying attention. That's all.
Yeah, I have to apologize that I haven't been able to keep up with the verbiage of this and really read and digest it. So I'll be abstaining. I can't say I agree or disagree with it right now. I honestly haven't, with everything going on, I haven't been able to keep up with it.
It may be better to listen to the discussion on town floor before we recommend.
I'm not against that. I'm sure there's going to be discussion because every time this matter comes up,
Right.
the earth removal people who are in town voice their opinions. Mrs. Adams, are you okay with that? Go ahead.
Yeah, we can put that notation that I can withdraw my motion. We can put the notation that we're waiting for presentation. I think the most important point that hopefully they'll relay and that we need to be aware of is I think that an earth removal permit is required for the removal of 10 cubic yards with our current bylaw. And it's much, much larger. So although people think or people thought at the previous town meeting that the new bylaws were restrictive, if we followed the bylaws we have, although there's lots of subjectivity, the amount is extremely small.
Agree. And I think that will be discussed. That has been discussed at other meetings, and I agree with you. I mean, I'm for the motion, for the amended things, but I don't think we have enough votes to do it. We might as well listen to the discussion.
Yeah, we can make our presentation. That makes sense. I withdraw my motion.
Okay, so we will defer that to town, recommendation at town meeting for BB.
Do we need to make a motion for that?
Yeah, we should. Yeah, go ahead.
I move to defer. That's till town meeting.
Do I have a second? Okay, Mrs. Adams, for deferral.
I would just ask for discussion. Sometimes it says waiting for presentation. Like, does it matter?
Yeah, just that it's gonna say recommendation at town meeting,
Okay.
which means,
fine.
yeah. Madam Town Manager.
Just to be clear, it will say deferred under the recommendation, but in the booklet itself, it defines what each recommendation means. And deferred, it says we'll make a recommendation after the presentation. Or
So, Mrs. Adams, your vote.
Aye.
Mr. McQuaid,
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries,
Aye.
Mrs. Luck,
Aye.
and aye from me. And last one is II, which is the citizens petition requesting that the town of Lunenburg apply to the Commonwealth of Mass for an additional all alcohol off-premises license for Jack's Country Variety at 1353 Mass Ave. And Alan Wernick was here last week to discuss that. Did we have a decision from town council about whether we can amend this on the floor?
yes, so I reached out to both town council and the moderator because ultimately it's the moderator's call on what he would allow. And town council said that he thinks it would be difficult to structure a motion that achieves the purpose of the article, but the town moderator said he would allow it. So,
I don't understand the first part. Why would it be, if we have two articles in the past that we've done this with, why would it be difficult to structure an article if we're allowed to amend it to reach the same conclusion?
town council thinks that because home rule petitions are so specific in their language, that the article itself, the legislature, they may not be satisfied with the wording of the original article, regardless of what the motion is voted at town meeting. But no harm, no foul, in a sense that it's, if it does not satisfy the legislature, then it could always be voted at the special town meeting.
Okay. So this would be a vote for we have to include it because it's a citizen petition. So then this is a matter of a vote to approve it or not approve it, if anybody wants to make a motion, or to defer it. So we have three choices.
I think we should probably defer this one because we're not going to be able to, in the current form, it doesn't accomplish what it needs to accomplish. So it's hard to support it.
Yep, I would concur with you.
So I move to defer till town meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Mrs. Adams,
Aye.
Mr. McQuaid,
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries,
Aye.
Mrs. Luck,
Aye.
and aye from me. So defer that 5-0. Excellent. All right. So that's the review. Now we have everything. Did I miss any? Madam
The
Town Manager?
streetlights?
Yeah.
Oh, the streetlights. That's right. We got to come back to that one. Yes. Okay. So we have in our Google Box the presentation that was given to us. Has that been modified when the Green Communities Committee gave it to the FinCom last week?
No, nothing's changed.
Okay. And the Green Communities Act is recommending that we purchase. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And that's where Mr. Passio said that although it's not identified as a source, they have 2020 free cash that they feel could fund this. Is that also, do you concur with that?
Yes, so I actually, during that discussion, I was the one to bring that up as far as, so the capital plan calls for 664,800 free cash, which leaves us a balance of 232,894 of unappropriated free cash that and the plan is like we have in previous years, we purposely leave a balance so it falls towards next year's free cash, and that helps fund the capital plan and such. The other items that are funded with free cash such as stabilization and OPEB. But that would be a possible revenue source. I would not recommend it to raise an appropriation. So the only available sources would be free cash and stabilization.
Okay, so the real question is, this presentation relies on grant money, correct?
The town could still purchase the streetlights, and the conversion then would depend on the grant funds for it to pay for that conversion cost. So, but the town could still purchase them and save on the maintenance costs that Unitil charges, which I think Dave Blatt identified as around $25,000.
So the question is, can we approve the whole thing, but hold off on the conversion, any conversion, until we know whether we're going to get grant money?
Yes, the article, the way it's structured, that the town could vote to purchase the streetlights and then apply, and which is a requirement of that grant. We have to own the streetlights to apply for Green Communities funds to pay for that conversion.
Okay. And when would this article also do that, or that would be a subsequent article in a future town meeting?
It wouldn't be, there would be no need for a future town meeting article unless the town were to have to fund for the conversion costs.
Gotcha. So the funds, the way it's structured, if we apply for the funding, that funding would in its entirety pay for the conversion.
Depending on grant sources, as we know,
As presented.
And there's funding available.
Okay. Mrs. Adams.
Yes. What was the figure of the free cash, the 200 and
the unappropriated balance is 232,894. So it would leave approximately 140,000 that would fall towards next year if that's the source.
You know, and we talk about capital items and money that's available, and I find it funny that we nickel and dime, engineering for a park. And I know it feels unrelated to some people, but it isn't to me, because I've been thinking about that site, the old primary site, for like 3 years. And we just, we didn't even make a warrant article that asked for money. And here we have money that we're willing to put towards a process that I think is best left in the hands of people that are already doing it. I think there's a lot of unintended consequences to ownership of something that we're not fully equipped to do. We'd need a contract with somebody to maintain them. And I don't think we're really any better off, is my personal opinion. I think the savings are hypothetical because we have to have a contractor take care of all of them and change all of them. And we don't really know what that looks like. We can only learn hypothetically what the savings might be. So I just merely bring it up because for a very small amount of money, also a capital item in terms of working on a building and a site, we ignore opportunities to apply small amounts of cash to big outcomes. And then we are maybe allocating tons of money to something that we simply right now just don't need. I guess that's how I feel about it.
Okay. Mr. Jeffries.
Yeah, it's a little frustrating when we have to keep revisiting things, but I have a question for you, town manager. What is your recommendation?
I stated my opinion on this, the purchase of the streetlights prior. I agree with Selectman Adams that there are unknown costs related to maintenance. It's adding another task to a department that already has a number of tasks on its plate. And the uncertainty of whether I foresee a lot of different grants drying up next year, the uncertainty, the availability of the Green Community Funds next year to pay for the conversion costs is a real possibility. So I that's why I did not include it in the budget recommendation. But the reason I brought that up as a source instead of, because the finance committee was looking at the capital plan and what projects to remove in order to do the streetlights, I think that would be a very messy situation as far as removing certain capital projects to pay for that. So to the cleaner version to accomplish both projects or both goals would be to take it from the unappropriated balance of free cash.
Mrs. Luck.
I guess my question was, why wasn't it on the capital plan? And I kind of agree with the finance committee that I would remove more things from the capital plan if I wanted to spend this kind of money. This is not a year to be spending an extra $100,000 on anything.
Mr. McQuaid.
And I also agree with the unknown costs of maintenance and having people in town who are already not able to do everything they need to do, having to take on something else.
Mr. McQuaid.
Yeah, I just, there are a lot of worthy projects in the capital plan. We chose to pull out half of them. So, and we even chose to leave money on the table, so we wouldn't max it out and we're being responsible. So I wouldn't say we're being frivolous with any of it. Is I think is the wrong thing to say. I have a hard time messing with that. I wouldn't want to remove any projects. I think we cut it as far as we should cut it. The capital plan. The hope that this might save us money in the future is the only condolence to utilizing capital funds towards this now in front of other projects that have been on the list for a couple of years in cases. But if we really think it's going to save us money, if we were really confident we're going to get those green communities grants to convert the lights, then I'd be all in on this. But there seems to be more hesitation now if that's actually going to come to fruition. So I'm a little bit more hesitant to support it now and utilize funds towards it.
Madam Town Manager, can I ask in the presentation by the Green Communities Fund, they have three options. What option are they promoting that we should go with?
The purchase.
Option 1, 2, or 3?
Let me open up the presentation to remember which is.
Sorry.
Option 3. So the cost to buy from Unitil, $90,793.21.
Okay, so we're buying the fixtures and everything. But
Correct.
we're not converting to LED right away.
No, the cost to convert to LED, I think the last known estimate was around 152,000, 157,000. 157,000 was the estimate that the Green Communities Group received.
So this doesn't require, but option 3 says utilize the Green Community Grant to upgrade. So we don't have to upgrade, but we're still going to see, are they saying that we're still going to see this $58,000 a year savings? Is that their estimate?
We wouldn't see that savings until the conversion to LED was done. The savings that we would see if we purchased the lights would only be the maintenance cost, which is the $24,000.
Okay. But we're going to we're just replacing that with something.
And we'd also have to pay a maintenance contract. They're estimating it would be $5,000, but that's the number.
Let's say it's double that. So let's say it's 10. The point is that we're saving 24, but we're going to spend 10. So we save a net of 14.
Mhm.
Because all the money really comes from, the real savings come from conversion.
Conversion.
All right. That definitely sways my opinion here because I don't see grant money flowing next year to do this. So, Mrs. Luck. And Dave Passios, I see your hand. I'll call on you in a moment when the board is done.
When they talk about the $150,000 to convert to LED, if there was a grant, the grant would be for the whole amount. Is that your understanding?
That's my understanding is yes. But so last year there was grant applications could be up to 250,000. This year it could be up to 200. So it all depends what's available in the program and what you're allowed to apply for.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
And they've been very successful at
Yes.
getting grant money. I'm just concerned that there ain't going to be any grant money to do it. So therefore, we'd be spending a lot of money for very little return because the big prize isn't going to happen initially.
And also, one thing that I have mentioned every time this comes up is no one's looked at how many lights do we need. You know, I don't want to buy a bunch of lights that we don't need. I'd like someone to inventory the street lights.
They have that.
And find out how many of them work and how many do we need.
They have an inventory of the lights in town.
We do.
Have they checked to see how many we need?
Well, I mean, that's a subjective question, how many you need. I mean, presumably the ones that are there because people either requested them or the town requested them. So, I mean, I don't know that we have a criteria. We're not looking to add any. We're just looking to keep the ones we have. Mr. Jeffries.
Thank you. I think a lot of work has gone into this to get us to this point. And it's unfortunate that, we're at this, that by the time it gets to town meeting that we're now looking at the current, pandemic that we're in, which changes the landscape for this. My real concern here is on the staffing, on the effect on staffing in town. And so my next question is going to go to Heather, which is, if we purchase these lights, I know you're going to, I'm assuming that we can make the impossible possible here, but is it reasonable at this time to add additional tasks to DPW?
No, not in my opinion.
Thank you.
Okay, I will go to Mr. Passios of the Finance Committee, although he may not be speaking as the Finance Committee. We are not hearing you.
Sorry about that. I shut the mic off earlier. Dave Passios, 56 Whiting Street. I think to be safe, I'll speak as a member of the public because this has not been voted on, as I said earlier, by the Finance Committee. I'd like to have the savings per year verified by the town manager because Thursday night during the public hearing, the number that we used all evening was $30,000 a year. And tonight she's mentioned $25,000 a year, then $24,000 a year. In any case, there's a savings if we take ownership of the fixture of the lights and get a contract to maintain them. The numbers have been crunched for a couple of years now. The information is solid. We've got the experience of local surrounding towns under our belt now with accurate data, which we didn't have a couple of years ago. And we knew it was a good deal back then. And delaying it just pushes the cost up every quarter because Unitil is replacing more and more fixtures. So a return of investment of 3 years on this first stage, and then subsequent years, $25,000 to $30,000 savings is a no-brainer in my head. Secondly, to even be able to apply for the grant, the town needs to own the streetlights. So if we don't make this step, then there's no applying for the grant, period, assuming it is or is not available in this next year. If it's 2 years before it's available, we've still saved 2/3 of our investment, and then we move forward then. Or we don't move forward, and we can do a couple of things. We can continue to save the $25,000 to $30,000 a year. As Mrs. Luck would like to do, review the number of streetlights, their locations, and we compare them down. We would have total control of that if the town owns all the fixtures. There's a process to that, and it doesn't happen very quickly, I don't believe, but that could be done. Lastly, what I call misinformation of additional work for the DPW is fictitious. The process, once there is a contractor in place, would be exactly the same as what they are doing and the town manager is doing now. They receive a call that there's a street light out. They contact Unitil. Unitil goes out and repairs it, and that's part of our maintenance costs. Under the proposed configuration, instead of Unitil, that call would go to a private contractor who can do those tasks much cheaper, and has proposed that we wait for maybe 2 or 3 lights to be a problem before he sends a truck out, which results in a savings over the repair of the 3 by doing it in groups. I see it, at least this step, as a no-brainer and gets us set up for the possible conversion next year or maybe 2 years down the road and still save money. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Town Manager.
Just to speak to the question about the savings for the maintenance, and I apologize if I misquoted, but I have 2 documents, both from the Green Communities. One, the presentation references $26,500 on the slide that says compare the 2 options. It's towards the end of the presentation. And another document that had the cost of the conversion as well, that I referenced. And that savings was $24,315. So there's the discrepancy, and I apologize if Thursday I referenced 30,000. I think I got that from the savings that was referenced on the yearly savings under option 2.
I have a question about, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you if you had more.
I was going to continue about what the difference is, what currently happens now. Mr. Passios is right in that if there is a street light out, that process is they would contact the town manager's office or the DPW. The difference here is that we would have to secure and go out to bid for a maintenance contract. And that is a big difference in my opinion, as far as that is now all outsourced and everything done by Unitil.
Okay. I have a question about the ownership. So at what, it's a 2-part question. At what point, if we pass it, do we have ownership? How long would that take? Number 1. And the grants for the green communities, their application, are they rolling applications or are they specific to one time a year?
It's always around March of each year is when the grant application comes out.
So if we pass this same exact article, let's just say we didn't put it on here, and we passed it in the fall, would we have ownership in time to apply for anything that may happen for the next March? Or would the process take longer than that?
I would have to check on that answer, how long the actual process of converting, or assuming ownership would take. I assume it wouldn't be that long as the town has the funding and they're paying Unitil. I would assume that, but I don't want to make that assumption without checking with Unitil first.
Because otherwise, if we don't do it now, to Mr. Passio's point, I just want to make it clear that we would lose another year and a half before we could apply anyway.
Yeah, the next time we can apply. So if it was voted at this town meeting, we wouldn't be able to apply for Green Communities funding until next March, same as if we voted in the fall.
Right, but that's assuming, but at the town meeting in the fall is near the holidays, and then that could easily, go past March, and that would be a concern, is that we wouldn't have it in hand as ownership, so therefore we would miss March 21, so then we'd be looking at March 22. So I just want to factor that in. Mm-hmm. Mr. Beardmore. Mr. Beardmore.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, thanks. I originally raised my hand.
Intro first, please.
Sure. Peter Beardmore, 282 Pleasant Street. I'm speaking as a citizen tonight. I had originally raised my hand to make a couple of the points that Mr. Passio's made. Looks like I lost video. I apologize. In particular, around the process and the time and energy on the part of the town that it would require to do this with respect to maintenance. And in my view, while Unitil owns the lights, there's still a burden on the town to maintain those lights. And I recognize the fact that we would have to go out to bid with one contract. How many contracts do we go out to bid on in a given year? And it would be a 3-year contract. So yes, there's some additional work here, but it's not a substantial amount of work on the part of the DPW or anything really beyond the town manager and the finance function in the town, in my opinion. The bigger point, though, that dawned on me over the course of this discussion is the extraordinary amount of volunteer hours that have gone into the research and the groundwork and the getting the quotes and just the work that it's taken just to get to this point. And this is a project that without the conversion will have a 3 to 4 year crossover in terms of ROI. And with the conversion, we'll have a 19-month crossover. And the reason for the volunteer hours is that people who have put in the time and energy into this want to see the town make wise investment decisions and save money. This is ultimately about saving money. And, Mrs. Adams raised the point earlier about the primary school and, quite frankly, that debacle that you folks have maintained responsibility for. This is work that was actually done. Somebody did the work, and they're bringing it to town meeting with a good proposal. So much so that we had a discussion at the Finance Committee last week about what else can we do alternatively outside of the capital plan to fund this. I frankly, because there's a return on investment, I would place this at a much higher level than some of the items that are currently still remaining on the capital plan. And so at the minimum, I would encourage you to defer on this, but please certainly do not recommend disapproval or take this off the warrant at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Passio's last word here.
Yep. One final comment, Tom, to your comments earlier. If I could, through you, ask the town manager how long the updated cost to purchase the streetlights from Unitil took. That will give you kind of a picture as to how slowly I believe the purchase process can go, because Unitil's in no rush to give us numbers, or at least this last time around was in no rush.
You have that number, Madam Town Manager?
The time it took, we requested that, or I did in June of last year, and it took till September to get those figures from them.
Okay, so that kind of answers my special fall town meeting question. Mrs. Luck.
Thank you.
I just wanted to agree with Mr. Beardmore that I would take things off the capital plan if I was going to support this. I don't think we can afford anything extra, but if we replace something on the capital plan, there are several things that could easily be replaced, in my opinion. I would be in favor of it.
Mrs. Adams.
Yeah, sure. I know definitely right now with like CPA and then with the old primary, we're leaning towards removing things or decreasing discussion. And this one's a tough one because like I said, there's hypothetical savings if everything went smoothly. And like a previous speaker said, a lot of time's gone into it. My sentiment typically, and everything's so convoluted with all the changes with the virus, but typically I like things to go to town meeting and not be halted by a board or a group of people because it's always best if it's decided by the legislative body. So with this one, and especially people are participating and there's citizens engaged, even with the few people we have here at the Zoom meeting, I would move towards wanting town meeting to weigh in on this.
Mr. McQuaid.
Yeah, after all the discussion, I guess I was in favor before. I still am in favor of supporting this article. I think saving the money in the long run is going to be a benefit to the town. I would take exception to the notions that there are non-important items on the capital plan because I would stand by each and every one of those. And I would challenge somebody to cut out $100,000 from that and not hurt the town's future. But I think the proposed method of funding for this is adequate.
So I entertain a motion about this article.
I'd make a motion to support the article.
So recommend approval.
Yes.
Do I have a second? I will second that for discussion. Is there any further discussion?
For discussion, I would say I don't make a motion to support it because I worry mostly about the contracts and things associated with the labor. I think there's a lot of unknowns. It looks good on the surface. Below the surface, there's a lot going on. That's how I felt at the meeting pre-corona. So I feel the same way now, even more so with so much uncertainty with labor, how things play out. So I do feel comfortable with it going to town meeting, but not as with my stamp of approval.
Okay. Mrs. Luck.
I recommend deferring it. I agree with the town manager and yourself that grant funding is going to be very scarce in the near future. And it's just not the time to spend an extra $100,000. We're going to have a million things to spend it on.
I would say that my point about the grant funding certainly weighed in the beginning, but the fact that we need to have ownership to even get there, to me, it does make sense to at least get the purchase. I don't think, at the worst case, I don't think we lose money doing it, and I think we'll see some gains. We could certainly have a discussion about what those savings might be. Maybe without the conversion, it's 3 years, maybe it's 4 years, but there'll be some kind of savings. And we'll be in a position when the grant money is available to apply, and we won't have the price go up again. So I'm kind of leaning toward recommending approval myself in this. So, Mr. Jeffries, I don't know if you want to weigh in on this, or we'll just go through a vote. Leave it up to you.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly hear what's being said. I'm on the fence. So I think that I can support deferring this to town meeting.
You can say again?
I said I'm on the fence. So I think that there are some savings to be had. And even if the numbers are off, there's still some savings to be had. But I think that right now, we're making an assumption here that we're in a position to really, if this handoff happens in 3 months, like it did, as the town manager just alluded to, I think that was 3 months time frame, right? June and September. So if we make this vote in June and they're in our hands in September, in a couple of months, are we going to be in a position to procure this contract in a timely manner? While, we had a conversation last week, pretty lengthy, about a similar question. And, I'm going to support the motion to defer.
Well, there is no motion to defer. There is no motion to defer. The motion is to approve, and I second it, so that's the motion.
Correct. And the next motion will be to defer, and I'm going to support that one.
All right. So I'll give you the opportunity, Mr. McQuaid. We can take a vote, but it seems pretty clear how the vote's going to go.
I can withdraw the motion.
All right. So I will withdraw the second. So somebody wants to make a motion then.
Sure. I make a motion to defer to town meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Mrs.
Second.
Adams. Mrs. Adams.
Any discussion or we talk about it?
Well, I think we discussed it for 25, 30 minutes, so I think
I'm just checking. Aye.
Mr. McQuaid,
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries,
Aye.
Mrs. Luck,
Aye.
and an aye for me. So we will wait to hear the further discussion at town meeting. So that's on A. That, I think that concludes the warrant, correct?
Yes.
So there are 5 deferrals, 2 removals, and 6 approvals, recommend approvals. Okay. Excellent. On to the next order of current business, which is discussion on General Law, Chapter 150E, Section 1, Town Manager Participation as a Voting Member on School Collective Bargaining Agreements. I will hand it to you, Madam Town Manager.
Were you going to vote on the town meeting and annual town election warrant?
That's up there. Yes, we should do that at this point. I apologize. So yes, we have to vote to sign the annual town meeting and the annual town election warrant. So I would entertain a motion as such.
Make a motion to sign the annual town meeting and annual town election warrants.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. Mrs. Adams,
Aye.
Mr. McQuaid,
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries,
Aye.
Mrs. Luck,
Aye.
and aye for me. Some things go by quickly and some things don't. So now we go into the discussion on General Law, Chapter 150E, Section 1, Town Manager Participation as a Voting Member on School Collective Bargaining Agreements. Madam Town Manager.
Selectman Luck asked this to be placed on this agenda, so.
Mrs. Luck, is this something you wanted to discuss?
Yeah, I guess one thing is I have brought up in the past that we should consider changing labor council, and the fact that we weren't aware that the town manager should be a member of the, that this law makes her a member of the bargaining unit in the negotiation is further evidence that we should change labor council, in my opinion.
I'm not understanding how this reflects on Labor Council.
Well, it's on labor council because the town manager is a member. This says that she's a member of the negotiations, and labor council, I would think, should be aware of that and make the town aware of that.
I would argue that previous town manager and any town manager before that, nobody recognized this either.
Didn't we have the same labor council for a long
Yes,
time?
but those people, but all those previous CAFO and town managers came from different backgrounds, and none of them knew that.
Yeah, but didn't we have the same labor council?
Yeah, I think that is correct. Yes.
Right. So I think labor council should have made us aware of that.
Okay.
So that's just an opening. And I'd like to know how the town manager is going to participate in negotiations. Now that we're aware of it, and the negotiations are ongoing. You know, I think the teachers union negotiations are the most important labor negotiations in the town. It's by far expense. You know, what is it? 70% of our budget is school related, and most of that is teacher salaries. I think it's critically important.
Have you discussed this, town manager, with the school committee and the superintendent, your attendance and voting in this negotiation?
Not since this was last brought up. I only just let the superintendent know this was on the agenda for tonight.
Okay, is anybody from, there was somebody from the school committee on here earlier. I don't know if they are now.
I don't see them.
But I'm assuming nobody's doing any negotiating anyway at this particular time.
Yeah, we don't know that, do we? I mean, I think the town manager should involve herself in the process. And I'd like a report on that involvement.
The involvement would be the vote on the actual agreement, just like a school committee member votes on the agreement.
Doesn't the school committee participate in executive sessions while the contract negotiations are ongoing, the same way that we participate in executive sessions when negotiations are ongoing for the police and the fire and the clerical unions? Shouldn't you be involved in those executive sessions?
I think it's the law is structured so that I could participate in those executive sessions if there were any, which I don't believe right now there have been. And then
I'm dismayed that you don't know, frankly. I'm dismayed that once you found this out, that you haven't made yourself aware.
I think the board was updated in executive session, and that was made known to the board a few weeks ago.
Yeah, but you know nothing since.
I don't think there's any negotiation since.
Yeah, I guess, but we don't know. I would like the town manager to involve herself and to know what's going on and to participate in executive sessions if there are any, or whether they're held by Zoom or in person or whatever, and to report back to the board on the progress. You know, I just think this is a very important negotiation and that the town should be participating.
The superintendent and I have a very good working relationship, and she does keep me informed. She hasn't notified me of anything updates recently. And so if there were some, I anticipate she would have told me.
Well, I would appreciate your checking on that and letting us know.
Madam Town Manager, I'd recommend that if you could send an email after this conversation to the board, to the school superintendent and the school committee, that this was discussed and identified, just formally, and then CC the board, just so they know that you want to be copied on all of the meeting dates of any negotiations.
Certainly.
Thank you.
I have a question. What is for Selectman Lutt, what is the goal, or not goal, but what is the hope that of what you're expecting Heather to be able to contribute different from what the members of the school committee can contribute?
Well, I think the town manager would bring the town's perspective into the negotiation process, which has been so, as evidenced by the last contract that was sorely lacking.
And Mr. Chair,
In the community that I taught in, a member of the finance committee was on the negotiations. The town in Harvard, the town is involved. The town should be involved in the teachers union negotiations. It's 70% of our budget. It's not something we should ignore.
I just have a follow-up.
Perspective is important and should be made a part of the negotiations. She has a voice. She belongs, according to the state law, she belongs in that discussion. And I would hope that she would represent the town.
Madam Town Manager.
Okay.
I received correspondence from the superintendent just now that there have been no executive sessions.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Adams.
Hi, yes, just, I just think long-term in general, in terms of making more connectivity, I don't see any negative in a town manager, not just Heather, but any town manager, and not just our school committee in our town, but any town. I don't see any negative in there being involvement with the town manager, because that is the single expert on the entire town's budget. The superintendent is the expert on a piece of the pie and all of the details with the school, but the town manager, and now especially with an assistant town manager, the big picture and the school piece of the pie is the biggest and most complex piece. So creating, especially if it's, offered up in state law, making connectivity, I feel like is always a positive thing. Especially moving forward, there's been so many dynamic changes that we haven't yet digested how people will respond to the changes. All the homes have been asked to take on part of the burden of educating. I bought a printer, I bought supplies, I'm buying paper, I'm buying pencils, but every year I spend hundreds of dollars on supplies for the school. If there's talks, and gosh, I hope not, that school could go back in different kind of ways where not all the kids are there on all the days. And like, that's really projecting, but you start to hear rumors. And so there'll start to be questions coming from households. How will I be compensated for my portion of educating the children? What about the supplies that I'm providing? So I think the whiplash moving forward with budgets could be even more dynamic. People may ask even more questions, forming connectivity to help understand the budget and any changes, I think is a healthy thing. And so I would go along. I know there's lots of different opinions and things if you take specific people and specific budgets, but as a whole, I see no negative in having connectivity between a town manager and school budget related items.
Thank you, Mr. Jeffries.
Yeah. So what I want to highlight, and I was taking some notes here so I can make sure I hit them all, is that, we have a school committee that is focused on the schools. And in my opinion, there's, I know I've been rather frustrated when this topic has come up before, but I want to just be a little more clear with where I stand on this. So, I think that when it comes to the schools, yes, it is a big chunk of the budget. However, for teachers, they have professional standards. They have changing expectations. There's always new educational requirements. There's always new changes in methods, which we should expect there to be some, especially given the current environment, that there are challenges of their work environment that they uniquely know that we just don't have any insight into. And that is why we do not oversee what happens in the schools, because it's just not our area of expertise. And so having the town manager, contribute to the process, certainly I understand what the hope is here now. I hear it, is to be able to offer an additional perspective. But the overall result is not because the town manager wasn't involved. in the previous process. That the overall result is because reasonable people who got together on these areas came to certain terms and agreements. And the school, looking at their history of how much money they generally get every year, I think that they can make a reasonable assumption that they're going to cut into their budget based on how much they're paying their teachers. I just think that this is such a complex area, and the appearance of us as a political body getting engaged in the education of children, which is not our role, I just don't think it's right. So that's why I'm a little more hesitant with, this push. I certainly don't have a conflict with Heather being in the room, but I don't think that we need to offer any contributions at all to the process.
Mrs. Luck.
I would like to point out that we don't know the intricacies of the police department or the fire department or the DPW, but we are involved in those negotiations. We are, we are running the town. And I think to understand what's going on in the teachers' contract negotiations and to have our town manager have a voice in those negotiations is appropriate. As I've pointed out before, the mayor of Leominster was the chair of the school committee for many years. And Leominster has done a fine job with their education in their schools. I actually started when I was a sophomore in high school. They had a brand new high school built. Just finished a renovation of that building because they took such good care of it, they didn't have to demolish it. The town being involved should be a good thing. And I trust that the town manager will help and improve the process and will represent the town.
Well, I think that we've all determined that the town manager has a seat at the table that nobody recognized before. So I don't think we're not here to determine that. That's a fact. So I have no problem with the town manager being at the negotiations. I really don't know what criteria the town manager, because the town manager's expertise is not in school negotiations, and a lot of that has to do with things. I mean, again, it's not going to be detrimental to have a vote there, but I don't know that it's going to have the impact that you believe it's going to have, Mrs. Luck. I mean, first of all,
I hope
there are five members of the school committee, so clearly the quote town that you're talking about, if you're going to make that division, is completely outvoted anyway. But we can certainly break a tie. It also gives the opportunity that there is a tie, which isn't good because it makes it an even number of voting members, which also is not a good thing. But again, I don't see any problem with the town manager being in the room.
As is her right, according to state law.
Yeah, again, there's no disputing that. That's very clear.
Thank you.
So she's in communication with the superintendent. She'll get notified on the discussions, and there you have it.
I hope that you will update us as well.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why not. To the best, again, it's going to be from one person's point of view, so I'm sure that we're not going to have community or joint executive sessions because we don't get a role in that. The town manager does, so we can meet with her, and she can certainly give us updates about where things are going.
Thank you.
Anybody have any final comments on that?
Yeah,
okay.
Only one comment, which was just in response to something that Selectman Luck had said, which is that in the other departments, I just want to differentiate that we do have oversight over police and fire and DPW, and we certainly can have a lot more engagement in understanding if those departments are moving in a direction that's aligned with industry standards and norms, and we can have some form of influence in that. That's, to me, is the differentiation between the other departments and the schools.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to minutes of March 10th, 2020. Do I have a motion regarding, did everybody get a chance to read the minutes?
I
of
make a
March
motion
10th?
to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, Mrs. Adams. Oh, hold on a second. Mrs. Adams.
Trying to sort through some bedtime. Aye.
Mr. McQuaid.
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries.
Aye.
Mrs. Luck.
Aye.
And aye from me. Any action items?
Yes, I've got a couple. In this past week, I asked the chair to revise the agenda, and he said it was too late because it wasn't going to meet the 48 hours. My understanding is that revisions can be made shorter than 48 hours. And the reason I bring this up is that I was also involved in another committee where the same excuse was given. And I think that it should be clarified with the town clerk. And if revisions are possible earlier, I would like the town manager to make all boards and committees aware of this, because there is misunderstanding somewhere. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
We can get a clarification from the town clerk. I did not. So on your request to me, I would say two things. First of all, I did not use it as an excuse. I was under the impression that any changes, meaning additions or subtractions, not modifications in existing agenda items, needed the equivalent 48 hours unless there were an emergency. So that was my understanding. We can try to get a clarification from the town clerk. But the second reason I did is that what you wanted to cover was already covered by an agenda item on the agenda already.
Yep, right, and I appreciated that. The second point is the photo of the hunters in the parking lot of the Lane property. There really seems to be confusion.
Hold on one second, Phyllis. Mrs. Adams, did you want to comment on the previous item?
She's on mute.
Yeah, I'm unmuting her. Okay.
No, I just had an action item.
Oh, okay. So, okay, you're okay. I just want to make sure. Okay. I'll call on you next. So go ahead, Phyllis.
Okay, so anyway, the action item is we need clarification on hunting, on town conservation land, on now if people are do have permits from the North County Land Trust, then we need to know what those permits look like, and so that if someone is hunting, we need clarification on hunting on conservation land and in town generally. It's disturbing to have hunters in the Lane parking lot.
So the first question is, I mean, you're saying conservation land and then you're saying North County Trust. So,
well, in both cases, all right. So if the North County Land Trust,
so Conservation Commission is clear. There's no firearm, there's no gun hunting except for Hunting Hill property on any town conservation property. That is a clear ruling.
Okay.
Now, whether if North County Trust, I don't know that they're part of the town's Conservation Commission oversight, or whether they're considered, for the terms of this discussion, a private owner, because private owners can give, and we have the chief on the line. So I guess, Chief Marino, if you want to weigh in.
And sorry, I raised my hand as well.
Yep.
Go ahead, ladies first.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Phyllis, for bringing this up. And I followed the emails and everything. And as we continue to discuss it, I want to bring up what would be the most important point to me even if hunting is allowed in any adjacent areas, I do not believe that we should allow the use of the parking lot. The picture clearly depicts hunters in the lane's parking lot, which is indeed a place they shouldn't be, regardless of where they were headed. Thank you.
And your question to me about the North County Land Trust, I saw on their website that it is possible for them to give permits to people, and these permits are annually awarded, and the hunters have to state which seed they're wishing to have their permit for. So I think that out of courtesy, they should let the town know of any permits they've awarded, and also show us what the permit looks like. So if the police stop these people, they have to show them their permit so that we know that they're hunting legally. I mean, it's just way too loose.
Well, let's talk to the police chief about legalities. If somebody gives permission to hunt some person or people to hunt on their private property, is there a police jurisdiction over that?
No, there isn't unless they're hunting within 500 feet of a dwelling. If they have a hunting license and they have permission to hunt, they can hunt. This situation is confusing because the two conservation land areas abut each other, only separated by the street. So people in that area are hearing gunshots, which we assume are on the Peabody side, not on the Lunenburg conservation side. And it's confusing down there because the posters, which I assumed, wrongly assumed, were on the Lunenburg conservation side of the street, are actually on the Peabody side of the street. And those posters would lead anybody to think that hunting is okay because, for example, one of them says, make sure you wear orange, be seen, be heard when you're hunting. So it's kind of a complicated situation because of the proximity of the two land areas. The only thing, I spoke to Rich about it today to try to clarify some of this because as I said, I assumed that those posters were on the Lunenburg conservation side, and they're not. And suggested that maybe he contact Peabody and see what, if anything, we could do to make it more clear. And what I didn't mention is maybe it's a good idea for the Lunenburg Conservation. I don't know if they can do this or if it's within their policies or whatever, but to post that parking lot area down there on Holman Street with no hunting signs clearly, so that there is no confusion on at least that side of the street. So Rich is taking steps to try to resolve this. As I said, it just became a complicated issue because of the proximity of the two pieces of property.
Let me ask you another question, Chief.
Yeah.
Obviously, they weren't hunting in the parking lot. They were carrying guns from their car to the hunting area. Would you concede that probably?
That's correct.
Okay. So have they broken any laws by parking there and taking their rifle or gun and crossing the street? There's no laws being broken. You're allowed.
No, the conservation rule is pretty clear. You can't have firearms on conservation land.
Okay.
Because it's in their parking lot.
Okay.
Yeah, he
So there
broke
we
the rule.
You can't possess them or you can't hunt with them.
Right.
No, you can't have a possession of a firearm on conservation land. It's a $100 fine. That's their rule or regulation, which they, by statute, can enact, and they did. But I mean, in good discretion, the police weren't going to charge this gentleman made a mistake and justified it. Pointed out the signs. He pointed out the website. He was just under the impression that he could park there and walk over to the other conservation land and hunt.
Sure.
Do you know if he had a permit?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
From them?
Oh, from them? No, I honestly don't.
Because, I would think that the North County Land Trust is not like an individual. You would think that professional courtesy would allow them to encourage them to make us aware of any permits they've given out. I don't think
but as I've asked the chief, that they can't ask. I have people give people to hunt on my property. They don't have the right to come on the property and ask you, do you have permission? There's no jurisdiction of the police in that. That's what I'm asking.
But there's certainly no jurisdiction in the parking lot.
Well,
Yeah, the parking lot is a different thing.
if you go on Peabody's website, it's listed as an activity. There was nothing about permits that I saw. It was listed as an activity.
Okay, that's even more open.
No, the North County Land Trust website that I went to said you need to obtain a permit, and it needs to be obtained annually, and you need to say what season you're going to hunt in. It was very specific.
Well, that's probably true. But what I'm saying is, if you go from that website to the Peabody website, there's nothing about that. It just says that it's an activity. So I can see where it could be confusing. Is all I'm saying.
Mrs. Adams.
Sure. I think the most important things to focus on are the ones that we know would be in our jurisdiction. I think they've already been mentioned, but we clearly want to post where it isn't allowed, just so there's not any confusion. And I think that's being worked on. And then I think the very clear problem here is everybody has different opinions about firearms, and certainly mine doesn't play into this, but for the sake of people who are parking there, recreating their children, there's enough going on, God knows, that people don't feel comfortable with just about anything. If I'm going there with a group of children to hike, I just don't think we need, shotguns and things coming out of people's vehicles in the parking lot of our conservation land, and it is not allowed. So I think we just focus on that clearly post that there is no hunting, and then take action if people don't follow the rules. There's certainly hunting allowed in an awful lot of places. People will hear shotgun. People should be careful in the woods. People should wear orange just in case. But the best we can do is just promote our rules and our signage and go from there. I think the picture was really nice to have in the email that got sent from the residents. And for anybody who's listening, the email just shows two hunters who are, appropriately dressed for hunting, and they're carrying their guns safely and everything. I don't think there is anything dangerous happening, but it could still be unsettling because it's not in the right place. So I think that's just what we focus on, is signage, just to help people be in the right place.
Well, I would also counter that pushing them out of the parking lot just means they have to park on the street, which is a narrow street, and I don't think it makes anything any safer.
That's conservation land, so they can't be there. That violates our rules.
I would take exception to that rule myself to begin with, but the alternative, pushing them into the streets, is not any safer for anybody.
Yeah, but it's a dead-end street, so it's not like it's the most traveled street in the world. Still,
it's a narrow road that you have cars stacking up on it.
Yeah, no, I hear your point.
But it's on conservation land, and it's not allowed.
Correct.
I was going to bring up one other point here. Oh, just for my own curiosity, what hunting season is it right now?
Turkeys.
Oh, turkey. Okay.
I interrupted a male
to my bird feeder if he wants.
I interrupted a male turkey doing all sorts of dancing and moving around, and I rounded the corner, and there she was, and I'm like, oh, sorry, man. They do quite a dance.
All right. So,
I think it's more than hunting season is what I'm trying to say.
Yep. So I think we have to post that, and we have to get clarification, of our posting on our land. We can't really do much. We can ask Rich, as you did, Chief, to discuss this with Peabody or North County, but we can ask them to change it and make it clear that hunting is only by permit from Land County Trust or whatever, just to make it very clear, and that people, if it is an activity that's allowed by right over there, that they're going to allow anybody in, then we may need to address this more formally if we can ask them to change that, because it really is confusing, and we don't need people crossing over properties, especially if they're abutting or just about abutting. So,
Well, yeah, so, the signage on our, and I say our, on the Lunenburg side of the conservation is key, because there's another thing I haven't been able to confirm yet, and I understand there's a hunting app. It's allegedly, it's fueled by some state. I think it's the wildlife. It points hunters to where they can hunt, and I was told that it points them to this Peabody thing. So,
yeah, well,
so there's other things out there that makes it confusing. So putting signage around the Lunenburg conservation side will clearly help, I think.
okay. Mrs. Adams, you had another action item?
Oh, sure. I brought it up as a public comment. I don't know where it formally belongs, but I would like to begin our Zoom meetings with the pledge. Someone can sponsor a flag in their office or something. I think it's a part of our standard meetings, and I think anything that makes us feel like we're operating normal. I don't know why we didn't do it from the get-go, but I'd like to reinitiate it.
There's a difference when the flag is in the room with you. There's a certain amount of respect you have to show that versus a virtual flag that you're looking at on the screen.
I know we're just stuck in this sad, tragic virtual world, but I'm still patriotic.
For the longest time, and it didn't get added to our Board of Selectmen meetings until, like, I don't know, 8 years ago or something, I think. It wasn't ever before then.
Oh, so when you started, it wasn't?
Nope. And before I started going, forget it as a member, just when I went to the Ozzy member, they never did that. Dave Rogers brought it up, I don't know, like 7 or 8 years ago. So.
All right. So I can't like make a motion or anything because it's not on our agenda.
You can bring it up. I mean.
But I want it on the agenda so I can say, can we please have
Well, we can put it on the agenda next week, Heather.
Thank you.
Personally, I'm not a big fan, but not a fan of the pledge. I'm just not a fan of having to do it because it's just ritualistic, and I'm not really a ritualistic kind of person, but that's me. I will do it if the board wants to do it. Okay, any other action items? Okay, town manager COVID report and regular report. It's a double header.
Yes. Great. So start with the COVID-19 updates. Board of Health issued their weekly update dated May 8th. We currently have, as of May 11th, 44 confirmed positive cases in Lunenburg, 21 of which have recovered, and 1 death. Regarding closure of town facilities, schools, town and school playgrounds, school fields, and the town beach, all school buildings will be closed for the remainder of the school year, and all school fields and school playgrounds are closed until further notice. The town playgrounds are closed until further notice as well, and will follow the guidance that's being issued forthcomingly in the next week from the state. The Parks Commission met, and the town beach will remain closed until further notice as well. The reopening task force, which consists of department heads and staff, met last week to discuss what reopening will require and address unique concerns of each of the main departments. We discussed the necessary supplies, increased cleaning requirements, and protocols for both employees and public that would need to be in place to reopen safely. As I stated last week, reopening to the public will look different for different departments, and there will be certain town departments that will come back to town offices prior to others based on a number of factors, including the availability of supplies, being able to maintain social distancing of 6 feet, and meet all the state's orders regarding gatherings and public health guidance requirements. We will not be reopening on May 18th as we do not have sufficient supplies on hand. We need to address the workplace standards that include posters. And when we do reopen to the public, it will be by appointment only at first. Our reopening will be a slow phased approach that will be determined by having the necessary protocols, supplies, and protections in place to do so safely. The governor released information on the four-phased approach to reopening the Massachusetts economy, along with mandatory workplace safety standards. These standards will be incorporated into the reopening plan for our town facilities. The governor's appointed reopening advisory committee will be issuing their full report on May 18th, so we will have more guidance to inform our reopening plan at that time. And more information on the four-phase approach is included in this report under updates from the state and federal government. Updates from the Senior Center on what they've been doing for services. As of reported last week, the van transportation services has resumed with limited transportation to routine medical appointments and pharmacy prescription pickups only. And since March 13th, the staff has made 493 wellness telephone reassurance calls to check on seniors, have delivered 1,291 Meals on Wheels to 44 clients, distributed 41 boxes to 37 people, and 56 face masks to 52 people. Information on town meeting and town elections. The special state election is still scheduled for Tuesday, June 2nd. The annual town meeting is scheduled for Saturday, June 13th, beginning at 9 a.m. And the town caucus has been canceled. The annual town election will be held starting at 7 a.m. on Saturday, June 20th at the TC Passios. And there is absentee and early voting methods available. And all this information is included in the report. But if you have questions, you can contact the town clerk's office. She can provide the absentee and early ballot applications, which can also be found online as well. Other updates for Massachusetts figures. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just had a question/comment for part of the update. Town meeting, June 13th, it's really so very close. And you just mentioned we don't have the supplies to reopen on May 18th. I think you should set up a plan and we should discuss and maybe have an agenda item. Personal opinions aside, because everybody feels differently about masks and about coronavirus and about everything that's going on. But out of respect for any rules, regulations, or concerns, I think we need to be prepared for town meeting, be it masks to offer, and things like that. So as we get together supplies for reopening plan, if you could highlight town meeting and how we can be sensitive and appropriate with conducting that meeting in a way that respects everybody's feelings. So if we can allocate some materials and some concepts and some thoughts for that.
Yes, certainly. And I was going to bring up at the end of the report, but I was thinking of the value in doing a survey to get a gauge of how many people are thinking of attending town meeting. So that can help us in our preparations as well, as far as supplies that we would need.
I want to echo what Mrs. Adams said, because I had it on my thing to bring it up at the end of this, that I think an agenda item next week has to be the start of how we are planning it. I don't know if I believe did everybody get the Board of Health Association associated with that town meetings, or did I just get it?
No, I can forward that.
Yeah, forward that so everybody can read it through it. But we need to have a specific plan that includes, obviously, masks, social distancing, cleaning. We have to have separate rooms for people. So if we get crowded, or if we mandate, and I think we should mandate masks, for those people who refuse to wear them, there should be a room where people who refuse to wear masks go, and they have a video monitor and a microphone there to conduct there. So there's a lot of things in that article that I think the board would appreciate being prepared, but we need to start planning it now so we have everything in place. Mrs. Luck.
I would like to ascertain what the legal procedure is required for the town to determine what date the town feels is safe to schedule a meeting.
Don't necessarily understand the question. We have legally, we have chosen the date that's legal.
Can we delay the town meeting past June 13th?
I'll let the town manager, defer to the town manager to answer.
So the selectmen do have the authority to delay the town meeting date until the warrant is called. And once the warrant is called, it then falls on the moderator. So that Chapter 53 of the Acts of 2020 allow now the moderator, in consultation with public health officials and the Board of Selectmen, to delay town meeting 30 days increments, essentially. So no more than 30-day increments at a time.
So when is the last date that the Board of Selectmen can delay town meeting?
We just approved the town meeting warrant and election just an hour ago.
Okay. So then we would, any further delay of town meeting would have to be done in consultation with the moderator?
Correct.
And clearly, if the governor's orders dictate that you can't convene people in groups of more than 10, by default, it doesn't matter what the town moderator says. Obviously, it's going to get delayed.
Right. Right.
Mrs. Adams.
Okay, so like I said, I think this will make a really great agenda item to prepare for town meeting. In terms of Selectman's luck question of safety, we can't guarantee safety anyways. So I feel like putting together an action plan to move forward and, keep things moving forward. I think that would be the intent of the agenda item is, okay, how do we, apply safety to this as best we can. But like I said, with sensitivity, the chair mentioned segregating people who wouldn't wear masks. I agree that sensitivity belongs to both sides. People may have actually had the virus, recovered, and technically, medically not need one, but for privacy and HIPAA, people have never been required to say, I have HIV, but the drugs are doing well. We've got to be highly sensitive as we move forward. People who have coronavirus and have passed through it, they can't spread it after a certain point, just as, rhinovirus and all these other things. So the rule as it stands now is a mask or social distancing. So you could simply have a section of the auditorium where you ask people to go sit, but apply social distancing. I think we want to be careful to respect everybody and not turn it into a negative experience for any person. I think we can get through it. But I think if we talk about it and think through it with keeping in mind, like I said, people's health, privacy, how that apply to whether or not they even need a mask. I think we've got to be really careful here. And I think we can do it. It's a big road.
Now we're arguing the merits of what the plan is. We just want an agenda item that has the plan on it. So that'll be next week.
Okay, well, you brought stuff up, so did I.
Yep. This is luck.
I agree with the town manager's suggestion of a survey. I think that would be really good. How many people are thinking they would come? And I just wanted to mention that Dr. Fauci today said, just because you've had it does not mean you're immune. So take it from him.
Okay. Mr. Jeffries. Oh, you're on mute. Sorry. How did you do that? Okay.
And I just want clarification in light of Selectman Adams' comments that we are not considering having people who've had COVID in the same room as everybody else without masks, or people who don't wear masks in the same room as everybody else.
You can't ask.
It's a discussion point for the planning next week. Once everybody sees the document from providing safety, their recommendations, we can discuss them all. We'll get our own boards of health involved, and we'll come up with a plan.
Got it. Thanks.
Mr. McQuaid.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm excited for that conversation. I wanted to add that even if we had our normal turnout. I think there's enough seats in that auditorium to keep everyone social distance and house everyone.
Yep. So there's things to discuss because there are places that congregate, like microphones, so things like that. So we have to be careful. But yes, let's put that on the agenda. And we'll get back to your COVID-19 updates.
Thank you. As far as updates from the state and federal government, as of May 11th, there were 78,462 COVID-19 cases, 5,108 deaths, and 394,728 patients have been tested to date. As I mentioned before, Governor Baker issued a preliminary review of or guidance on what reopening will, the 4-phased approach will be. And it starts with the start stage, then the cautious stage, the vigilant stage, and then the new normal. And outlines what certain mandatory workplace safety standards will be, including social distancing, hygiene, staffing and operations, and cleaning and disinfecting. So as that report is fully issued next week by the advisory board, we'll know a lot more about the protocols and best practices and more hopefully detailed information that will help us with our plan. And that's all I have. Actually, I'm sorry. There was an update under the unemployment assistance. The Department of Unemployment Assistance recently released frequently asked questions to guide employers and employees in returning to work. So there's new guidance on that. There's also new guidance on fulfillment of remote orders by retail businesses. And this, under this guidance, non-essential businesses are allowed to bring in a small number of employees in order to remotely fulfill online or phone orders, provided they can meet safety protocols. So there's guidance on that. And the U.S. Department of Commerce Economic Development Administration funding, they issued an Economic Adjustment Assistance Program on May 10th. And this is $1.5 billion in funding through this adjustment assistance program. And this will provide support to communities in economic recovery through planning and technical assistance grants, grants for recovery and resilience strategies, capitalizing or recapitalizing revolving loan funds, and innovation grants. So that's, there's new information on that as well, new funding.
Excellent.
Sorry?
I said excellent. I said now your normal town manager report.
Normal report.
I had a question for the town manager.
I'm sorry. Yes, Mr. Jeffries.
For the thank you for the report. It's very comprehensive. By my count, I think we're at 17 pages now. Is it possible to get a abbreviated document that just has the weekly updates?
Yeah, I was going to ask the same thing. Thank you. It's hard to follow you because we're scrolling through pages and some things you're just going over.
I can do that for the board. The reason I include it, all the information that hasn't changed in my, what I put out to people is because so people don't have to refer back to old updates for information as long as it hasn't changed. Because these go on the town website and out to the town-wide email, to the ledger and to PAC. But for the board, I could pare it down for our weekly conversation.
Yeah, you're obviously selecting things to choose from there. So just if you can, by color or something, indicate what you're going to be saying so we can follow along, I think.
That's a good idea. I'll highlight the areas.
Yeah, okay.
That'd be excellent. Because I think 17 pages is helpful for someone who doesn't have any information, but someone who's been reading every week.
Mm-hmm.
Probably.
You can highlight the highlights.
Yeah, highlight.
Yep.
All right. And before I get on to my regular report, just a question had been posed by Selectman Luck in an email, and this relates to the Chapter 53 of the Acts of 2020 about a 1/12 budget. And I had already spoken to the finance director about this when the act was originally adopted in the beginning of April. I spoke to Karen about, what that would look like. We've had discussions, and this last week, after attending a weekly conference call with the state officials that include Sean Cronin from Division of Local Services, he had said that the guidance document was forthcoming and it was going to be issued that week. So I talked to Karen again after that conference call to formally start putting together a 1/12 budget in the event that we're not able to approve a budget at a town meeting before June 30th. So that's being worked on by the finance director. There are forms that need to be created by the Division of Local Services that are not uploaded yet to Gateway, and that's how the 1/12 budget is submitted through our Gateway system to Division of Local Services for approval.
But should we need that, and when those forms are available, if we have to postpone town meeting, you are prepared for that?
Yes, we're prepared.
Mrs. Luck.
I wanted to thank her for that, because that was going to be one of my questions, because it does say that the Division of Local Services strongly encourages a monthly expenditure plan be submitted as soon as possible, but you're waiting for forms before you can do that. Well,
Yeah.
Thank you for being on top of that. Another item I wanted to bring up, because Chair Alonso said that this would be the time to bring it up, is the reopening task force. I was really surprised there wasn't a member of the Board of Selectmen or a member of Park and Rec, and it doesn't seem to be that there's any community involvement in the reopening task force, and I'm surprised at that. One thing I think we should consider is opening town hall on Fridays, because it will be more available, and you don't want people working there at the same time anyway, so you could extend the work week and have more available for people who would like to be able to come to town meeting on Friday, to town hall on Friday. I think there are things that should be considered that aren't being considered, and I think the task force membership should be expanded.
It's made up of department heads and staff, because it has to do with how we're going to reopen safely, and that's keeping employees safe as well as the public. So there's going to be a lot of anxiety around this issue as far as people coming back to work, and those concerns have to be addressed by the people that relay those from their employees and their departments as well. If there's any comments, I'd be more than willing for people to submit comments.
I think more people should be involved. Clearly. That's my comment.
Okay.
For my regular report, I'll do the existing vacancies. There's 2 alternate vacancies on the Agricultural Commission, 1 vacancy on the Americans with Disabilities Act Commission, 1 vacancy on the Architectural Preservation District Commission, 1 vacancy on the Finance Committee, 1 vacancy on the Open Space Committee, 1 vacancy on the Planning Board, and actually make that 2.
I was going to say 2, yeah.
And 2 associate vacancies on the Zoning Board of Appeals. And talent bank forms can be obtained on the town website and forwarded to the Board of Selectmen's office. Update on the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Planning Grant. The Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Core Team met with the consultant hired through the planning grant we received, and we reviewed questions relative to our environmental vulnerabilities and the format that the workshop will take. The workshop is scheduled for May 21st from 8:30 a.m. until 12:30 p.m. via Zoom. And everyone should have gotten an email on that from the land use director. CARES Act funding, the town has begun to receive some relief funds from the CARES Act Relief Fund. We received $7,035 from the Department of Health and Human Services Emergency Relief Fund. These funds have restrictions on use, but can be used to prevent, prepare for, and respond to coronavirus for healthcare related expenses or lost revenues attributable to the coronavirus. The superintendent was notified by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education on Friday that emergency relief funds for school districts will be provided in the form of a grant totaling $198,000. Funds may be used for fiscal 20 or fiscal 21 COVID-related costs, and the Federal Grants Office will be holding webinars to provide more detailed information in the next few weeks for the schools. So until then, the school won't have a clear idea as how exactly we will be able to use these funds. Update on the request for proposals for tax assessment services and the principal assessor position. The Board of Assessors met on Monday to discuss how to proceed with the lack of responses to the request for proposals for tax assessment services and how to proceed with the applications received so far for the advertised principal assessor position. The firm that currently provides tax assessment services, RRG, replied that they would not be responding to the RFP that requests a full-time assessor, as their firm is not structured that way and it would be cost prohibitive. The HR director, the chairman of the Board of Assessors, and I will proceed with interviewing the applicants in the next couple of weeks, and in the meantime, get a proposal from Tyler Technologies and our RRG to provide a quote to provide services for up to 6 months. RRG will be asked to provide a quote that would continue the method they have been providing services to date, and this would allow us not to have any disruption in deadlines for interim value adjustments and other assessing services until a decision is made regarding whether we proceed with hiring a full-time principal assessor or continuing to outsource this function. Meetings, events, and other announcements. Town Council has office hours on May 20th from 12 to 4 p.m. The disposal of yard waste is open every Saturday until May 16th, and the hours are 9 a.m. till 4 p.m. And the Finance Committee has a meeting this Thursday, May 14th at 7 p.m. via Zoom.
So this Saturday is the last day for yard waste at Young's Road.
Correct. You can
Wish
take
of
it.
luck.
I have a question on the assessors. Is RRG's work no longer acceptable?
Currently, but we're currently under contract with them until the end of this fiscal year. The Board of Assessors wish to structure the RFP. They're looking for a full-time assessor type position, which is not structured that way.
Why is that? You know, to me, it would seem like if you hire a firm like RRG, you have the benefit of getting a lot of people to fill your needs. And I guess I don't understand why a full-time assessor is a requirement. And if firms don't offer a full-time assessor, then you must hire one. So you're adding a full-time employee with the benefits and the retirement and all of that stuff that goes along with it. But the town is, I hope, trying to avoid. So I don't understand making the change.
This is a direction the Board of Assessors would like to improve the services of assessment services that they feel needs improvement, and that would require more time of a principal assessor that has the expertise to provide to that office.
what is the difference in cost to the town of using RRG as opposed to hiring an assessor?
As I stated at a previous meeting, when this discussion has evolved with the Board of Assessors, that there can be no, their budget is their budget, meaning what is in there for the assessment services outsourcing, the principal assessor position can be no more than that cost.
Does that include OPEB?
None of the positions, we fund OPEB through the OPEB trust fund article.
So it's not like an enterprise fund, so they don't pay their OPEB. So you'd have to deduct, it would have to cost less for it.
That's a whole nother discussion, but we're talking about employer costs that are included in the budget. So healthcare.
Yeah, but OPEB, well, it doesn't make sense to me. All the costs should be included.
We don't include OPEB costs for any other position.
Well, we should. It's a cost to the town.
That's why we try to fund it.
I don't think it's a laughing matter, actually. I don't think it's funny, personally.
I was making a point. That's why we fund it through an article. We deposit
But
money.
it's a cost. It's just like when we have debt, you go, oh, there's no debt, but you're planning to have debt. You know, OPEB is a cost. It should be considered every time you hire somebody. That's why OPEB's so big. Nobody thinks about it. It should be assigned every time you hire someone.
I think the town manager is pointing out what has always been done. That's your point that it should be considered is certainly something we can take up. But any time we've talked about a change in position, it has never been brought up before. And so it seems only fair, at least for the time being, that we consider that the same methodology that we use for this position. I don't think that's unfair. As far as the reasoning behind it, again, we have an elected Board of Assessors, and we can certainly ask for a written request for them to explain why they're looking for what they're looking for. But again, it is an area that they are elected to discuss and make decisions on. They are an elected body. Okay, is that the end of your town manager report?
Yes.
Okay. Upcoming meetings. Next week, we are meeting on the 19th. We will talk about, among other things, town meeting planning, obviously. That's what we just discussed. Do I have any public comment from the public?
Tom?
Mr. Marino, Chief Marino, yes.
I'd like to make a comment on a subject that Phyllis brought up, and I don't mean to be condescending. That's not the point of this comment I'm going to make. I obviously hold Phyllis in high regard, but I'm trying to influence her opinion on an issue here, and that is that Labor Council, having negotiated contracts on one side of the table for probably 25 or 30 years. Most of those years, or many of them, were with the present Labor Council. Then I negotiated contracts on the other side of the table as a police chief with the same Labor Council. And I would say that he's probably one of the most brilliant attorneys I've ever met. Two I hold in high regard. I think the issue at hand here should be investigated, because it's pretty clear to me, unless I'm wrong, that the charter doesn't allow the town manager to negotiate with anybody at the school. So if there's a state law that may be trumped by the charter, and it should be looked into, and that may be why Labor Council hadn't suggested it, but that's just an opinion off the top of my head, having read the charter. As you know, with respect to the town manager's authority in negotiating with anybody at the school level. So it's not with any disrespect that I say that, Phyllis, because, you know, I love you dearly. It's just that I've known Mark Terry for years, and I think if you knew him the way I knew him, or like anybody else, we all make mistakes, or there's always oversights, but he's done a lot for this town, and on both sides of my table particularly, and he saved us a lot of money
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
over the years.
It's not my experience, but I'm glad to hear it's been yours.
It really has. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment from the public? Any public comment from the board? There is none. I have one public comment, and that is to alert everybody that the traditional Memorial Day ceremony that's usually held in Memorial Park because of the ongoing gathering restrictions, etc., will not be held in live and in person, but we have decided to do one remotely with a YouTube or not a YouTube, but a video recorded presentation. We felt many of us, I want to thank so many people who put this together. They'll be on the credits, so I won't mention them here, but there will be a presentation on that day, Memorial Day ceremony on Monday, May 25th at 10 a.m. that it'll be broadcast initially. I'm assuming, although I don't know exact timing, I'm assuming it'll be rebroadcast several times afterward, but people should be aware that they can tune in and we can celebrate and honor the fallen from everybody who's lost their lives in the armed services. Mrs. Adams. Oops, sorry, hold on. You're muted. There you go.
Comment in the form of the question. I don't know why it popped into my mind now, but Heather, I'm not sure if you got any feedback, but this is very popular and an important item. Many people got the wrong trash bags. Did that make it to your level?
No.
A lot of people purchased big bags and small bags were in the package. So I don't know if those complaints will make their way. A lot of people have other things on their mind right now, but I saw it in more than one spot. So just so you're prepared, I think some town trash bags were mispackaged and missold, according to Facebook. And you know, I feel like that usually makes its way, yeah, I just thought I'd mention that. And that reminded me of another thing. And I don't know if this got its way to the chief or to Heather. There's a lot of talk about an accident at the intersection on Leominster Road by the gazebo, where people were really upset and worried about an accident. And they had said in the thread that they had told town officials about their concerns of this spot. And I just inquired, who did you tell and when? You know, looking to see if I wouldn't redundantly bring it up, but nobody replied. But I don't know if anything mentioned on that intersection there. I think it was the one where it crosses over to White Street or Whiting.
Whiting, yeah.
Yeah, but there was also, you know, a lot of discussion of that intersection and if there's any possible improvements. So I'll just, in light of what's out there in Facebook, I know as a town, we haven't really embraced Facebook. But, you know, I watch Leominster Unite or whatever, and the mayor there uses Facebook in like a really optimistic way. Lots of communication, solves problems, because there's a lot of things out there that, you know, if they made their way through to us, we could implement like positive change or communicate. So those are two things I had seen that I should have brought up earlier. Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comment from the board? I would entertain a motion then to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Mrs. Adams,
Aye.
Mr. McQuaid,
Aye.